I'm almost witnessing in some way my own death, at least the death of the person that I was showing up as well as the loss of my confidant. So, what is life but an opportunity to really build and cultivate a relationship with the things that you'll lose?
What up, fam? Welcome to another episode of Life Beyond the Game. Holy cow, this thing it just continues to get better and better. And I just want to say thank you to all of you listeners, all of the listeners that are coming in from all over the place, all you former athletes, and, whatever you're doing. If you're finding inspiration in these shows and you continue to come back and spend your time with me and these guests, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know podcasts are a big investment, and it just means so much to me to see all the feedback and how these conversations are really starting to hit and the impact that they're having. So thank you so much. I hope to connect with all of you listening at some point. Got a lot of things coming online, a lot of offerings, a lot of beautiful, I'm all about building community and doing retreats and creating experiences and creating sacred space for us to connect with our hearts and all that juiciness and goodness. And so there's a lot of cool things coming online. So stay tuned. And you guys will all be the first to hear about it because I just love podcasting. This is so fun. Anyways, today's guest is Fischer, formerly known as Andrew Fischer. And I met Fish just a few months ago at, another synchronicity at one of these parties, and then actually ran into his mom and his brother at a local beer garden. I was on a walk, and I was I was with my dog Freedom, and sparked up this conversation. They came up to her and was like, "Oh," and they're like, "Oh yeah, my brother is we were visiting him from Maryland, and he does this breathwork thing." And I'm like, "Oh, breathwork thing." I'm like, "Okay, that sounds like somebody I would know." And they said Fish. And I was like, "Oh, I know Fish." And I hadn't actually connected with him deeply or dropped in with him. And then moments later, he walked in. I was like, "Fish, what's up?" And for those of you that don't know, Fish is CEO and co-founder of Somatic Breathwork, Somatic Release Breathwork. They're rebranding right now. So it's Somatic. And I think it's Somatic Breathwork. But it's this movement that's happening. On social, they've just blown up. And they have this certification where they're teaching people the emotional awareness and emotional intelligence on how to move energy with the power of the breath. And it's something I'm deeply connected to. And what they're doing and how accessible they're making it and how impactful and profound, I'm blown away. And so I was really grateful to have the opportunity to sit down with Fish. And when I found out that he was a Caddie in the PGA, and he actually supported one of the greatest golfers nowadays, Bubba Watson, in the process of winning his first major, the Masters, a few years back, I was like, holy cow. I would love to share your story because I've never had that perspective of a Caddie. And, they're athletes too. And after speaking with Fish, I definitely see and connect with more of the inner workings of not only golf, but what it takes to be a Caddie. And his just pure tenacity of, being in college and realizing I don't want to sit behind a cubicle my whole life. And he understood at a young age, this American dream thing of working until retirement just wasn't for him. And he didn't know what to do, but he listened and he followed his heart. And that led him on a wild, wild journey and ended up culminating in a really profound, powerful, challenging experience within a relationship where he felt literally the rug was ripped out from under him. And he talks about he really drops into his heart, I can feel it right now, and shares from such a deep place how this experience impacted his life and the grief that he experienced. And that synchronistically, of course, led him to a practitioner in, I believe it was Arizona, by the names of Steven Jaggers, who is the other co-founder of Somatic Breathwork. And Steven took Fish through I think it was 6 sessions. And Fish recalls this whole experience, and he actually shared with me a video of this session that I think I'll put in the show notes so you guys can check it out. The power of this process of really connecting and being able to feel deeply the emotions that he had living within him from this experience. And I'm sure there was a lot of other unraveling and healing that took place, and the access of these non-ordinary states of consciousness through a simple tool that we all have access to, which is our breath. Being able to breathe. And it's not necessarily just about the breath, it's about creating the safety to and the permission to feel fully and deeply. And that's what they're doing with Somatic Breathwork. And I'm so proud of these two and everybody that works with them and everybody that's involved. It is really, really, really powerful. There's going to be a link in the show notes if you want to check out what they're working on. The socials, you can connect with Fish. His story is just truly incredible. And it's been one hell of a journey. I'm really grateful he took the time to sit down with me. I hope you guys all enjoy it. If you enjoy this episode and you know somebody comes up in your awareness when you're listening to it and you just think, man, this person needs to hear this because this is what they're going through, go ahead and share it with them. And if you feel called to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to leave a 5-star review, say a few nice words. I know it only takes a few minutes. Not a lot of people do it because it takes a few minutes. But if you really are listening to this podcast regularly and it's impacted you, please take just a few minutes and leave some nice, kind words, because that helps people. Podcasting is an investment, and people want to know, is this show good? So let them know. You can also do that by sharing it with people, and make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening, so that you don't miss an episode, and we can start building community around this show, because the guests just keep getting better, and the conversations keep getting deeper, and I'm doing more long form, and I'm really investing in bringing in-person experiences as much as I can. There's a few online still, but just the depth of conversations that happen in person here in Austin is just, I am having so much fun doing this, and I hope you guys are enjoying it and can feel the heart and soul of what we're doing here together, including you, including the guests, including all the people working on the show. Shout out to Graham, my producer, Reese, who's helped me with clips, and everybody else that's helped me along the way. God, I'm just in a place of deep gratitude. I know you guys are going to really love this episode. But before we get started, I just want to share something I'm so excited about. And I share it on every podcast. And so if you're listening to this, if you're new, this is the first time you hear it, I hope it inspires you. But I have a vision on my heart, a vision to bring together and build the foundation for a community that is going to have a long and lasting impact in the world. Bringing together high impact, influential change makers, people who are building businesses, are leading visions, leading in any way, who are doing things in a very impactful way. Bringing those people together so that we can initiate deeper levels of our own embodiment, our own highest potential, and allowing us to integrate the energy of our hearts into our creations, into our leadership, into our cultures, into our businesses, into the things that we're creating to impact the world. But you can't build community just because you want to build community. That's what I've found. I've been on this journey of really cultivating the tools to build strong community, because it's what every single person is after, whether they know it or not. We all desire to be seen, heard, felt, held, loved. The only way we can do this is through the frequency of presence, being present with one another. And the only way you can create bonds within a community is through an experiential process, through a rite of passage. I've been facilitating these transformational wilderness expeditions the last couple of years, whitewater rafting trips out in Utah. And so what we're doing this year to cultivate the strength and the unbreakable bonds of the Heart Collective, this community that we're calling in, we're going to be using this wilderness expedition as a rite of passage, as an initiation into this new type of community. One where it's not just about the individual transformation that we go through, but the collective impact and potentialities that we can have together is so much greater than we can have alone. If something I just said inspires you in any way, or you feel a little pull at your heartstrings, or something you may be interested in learning more about, there's a link in the show notes. You can apply. You can reach out to me directly if you have any questions. We have big plans for the future, but it all starts with laying the foundation in 2023 with these 40 founding members. I hope you're one of them. I hope to connect with you. Go check it out. And without further ado, I hope you enjoy this episode. It's juicy with Fischer. Fish, what up, dude?
What is up?
How are you, man?
I'm feeling good.
Feeling good. I'm feeling good too. I am really stoked to have you, man. We just connected for the first time. Actually, I saw your family. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was on, because I live next to Easy Tiger in like the neighborhood, and I quite frequently walk either with my dog or alone just up to Easy Tiger, and there's just such a really dope little vibe. In Austin, if you're not from Austin, there's a lot of cool like beer garden, like outdoor spots. And I just sat down after this long walk, and I was just relaxing next to the fire by myself, and I was going to do some work on my phone. And then this woman and this man come and walk up next to me, and I was with my dog, and they're like, "Oh, cute dog." And they started up a conversation, and they're like, "Oh, we're here visiting. It was our brother or my son." And he does this breathwork stuff, and like I'm like, "Oh, what's his name?" And they're like, "Oh, it's his name's Fish." And I'm like, "Oh man, I know Fish." I hadn't actually connected. We went to a party together and like just crossed paths very briefly, but I was like, "Oh, I know a Fish." And so we struck up a conversation, and that was really cool. And then moments later, I saw you were picking them up. I think you were leaving town, going to the airport or something. We exchanged numbers, connected on the phone just like last week, and here we are.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Just like that.
Synchronicities of life, huh? Is
Yeah.
that happening pretty regularly in your life nowadays?
Yeah, it does. You know, especially as you start to really refine what it is you want to bring to the world, and you start to get clarity around that. I think that there's an incredible gravitational pull.
Yeah, the
Anybody-
magnetism.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all are looking for some type of stability. You know, this is just a crazy existence, and so many things happen. So anyone who has found some clarity, some purpose, whatever that may be, even if it's just for a glimmer of time, people are drawn to that. And so that's a big thing with just even social media. Social media is a place that most of us show off rather than show up. And so when you have something that you're like, wow, actually, pictures of me going on vacation aren't as relevant as this thing that I really am passionate about. And when you consider that your North Star and you don't deviate too far off of that, that starts to ripple. And with that, so too do just a tremendous amount of just synchronicities.
And opportunities and all the beauty. And we'll get into that purpose and that passion, because I'm in a similar spot where I feel like my capacity is being stretched and I'm doing all these different things, but it feels like not hard or difficult, or I'm not experiencing burnout. And I probably, if I kept at this pace, would. So it's finding balance of like the cycles of life, and when it's time to like put the pedal to the metal and put a lot of energy in, and then building a team out and all of that, which I'm excited to get into what you're doing now. But let's roll it back to where you started with that initial purpose and passion, which is golf.
Yeah, let's go back in the past where life makes more sense.
Than now, and the
Well,
infinite complexities of the universe.
forward is hard. You don't really know where you're going. You know, to look in reverse is to at least know where you've been. Back in the past. Okay. Where do you want me to start? There's a lot.
I would say just let's paint the picture of kind of your North Star and your purpose as it pertains to golf. When did you start getting into golf? And then how did you get the opportunities to become one of the top caddies in the world?
I think that's a great starting point. Okay. So, you know, this is a social media world, but this happened, let's go prehistoric times. This was before social media. There was a time before that. And I didn't have a lot of direction, understanding about life. I had only traveled just a little bit. I knew I loved international travel, but this was the good old-fashioned days of you actually had to interact with someone. You had to talk with them and see and hear their story and see if it resonated with you. And for me, I was fortunate enough to have an incredible love affair with golf through my father, God rest his soul. Also a good friend of mine, my best friend when I was very young, probably like 16, passed away. That caused me travel the world and push for like more of an explorative type of life.
So your best friend passed away when you were 16?
He did.
That is an intense to confront death in such a real way at that age. Talk about the impact that had on your life back then.
I will say probably it had an impact to avoid death, and hence turned my North Star towards travel. It was my escapism, and it became a love affair of mine. And with my father's, kind of willingness to push me into an incredible game of golf that we'll talk a little bit about, and my reluctancy to face my own mortality, perhaps, and just kind of not feel the grief. I found a love affair with international travel, and those two kind of melded together. As I was going to college, I was like, none of these career paths that they're giving me an opportunity to pursue in college have the ability to have me travel internationally and also be a part of golf.
Yeah. They're just like sit behind this desk in a cubicle and work your way up and slave away your whole life. You saw that at a pretty young age. Wow.
Pretty much. I think I was like a PE teacher might be the closest.
That was my degree too. I was like phys ed because I wanted to just do football on the football path and be a coach after that. Yeah. That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Well, we love sports, because we love this ability to kind of dig deep within ourselves and to see what we are capable of. And sports gives us a great opportunity to do that, to something to measure against. So those two things kind of like welded together, and I was fortunate enough to continuously and relentlessly pursue conversations with other people, to hear about their stories, their journeys, where they've been, what they've done, until I found the love affair with their life. And I met a guy named Royce Nielsen. I'll never forget it. It was a casual lunch, and he told me an incredible story of, and I don't want to bank it too long because I don't know how the listeners
long form content. We'll
right.
You can press the skip 30 seconds if you want to go past this story.
He was on his first day on the job cleaning pools in Bay Hill, near the Bay Hill neighborhood, got lost, stopped at a Caddie shack. It is a real thing. And asked someone for directions to this house. The Caddie master had no clue where this house was, but said, "I don't know where that house is, but I need a caddy. If you're willing to kind of like just forget that job, I've got one for you, and I know it's going to at least pay $200." And so he's like, "Well, that beats what this pool cleaning gig's going to give me. I'll do it." And he proceeds to have an incredible round of golf. A few businessmen had flown in from Japan. He caddied for them. He read a putt on the last hole for $10,000. It went in. They had a great dinner. They took him into the clubhouse, and he had like steak and wine and all the things. And he's like, "I found a dream life. This is incredible." So the next day he shows up, and he's telling me this story. The next day he shows up, and there's just nothing available for him. There's a lot of caddies that outrung him. And
he just came back for like, "Hey, let's try that again."
Yeah.
They're like, "Actually, no, sir."
Yeah, no, sir. But fortunately for him, he waits around, even though he's kicking himself for leaving this pool job because he got fired from that. He, around 3:00 in the afternoon, he's been there since 6 a.m. He finally is about to leave. He's just had enough of it. And just before he does, the caddy master comes back over and says, you ready to go?" Royce is like, "Yeah, I've been here since 6 a.m. You're damn right, I'm ready to go. Ready to leave, practically." And he says, "Mr. Palmer will be out here in very shortly." And he thinks, "Palmer? Like Arnold Palmer?" And it turns out it is Arnold Palmer. And he proceeds to have a great round with Arnold. They hit it off, because that's a big thing with caddying. You spend a lot of time with this golfer.
Yeah, it's more of a relationship.
It's incredible.
Or just as much of the relationship as the skills of being able to read this up.
And the caddy is a tool. It's a tool for you to use as a golfer. And they hit it off. And he goes on to tell me about how he caddies for Arnold like full time. He takes him out on tour, and he travels around the world, and he meets kings and he meets queens. And Arnie was one of the few players at the time that actually flew on private jets. So he's just telling me about this story. His face is lit up. I'm so excited. And I can't wait. I can't wait to be done with the conversation. I love the conversation, but I'm so inspired that I just want to leave.
How old were you at this
I
point?
got the message. It's time to hang up the phone. I was 23. I just graduated college. I just packed all my stuff. I didn't even go to graduation ceremony, just packed all my stuff in my car, and I moved to Florida. Didn't even have a place to live. I just drove around aimlessly, sleeping in my car at random places until I could find a spot.
And where did you meet Roy again?
I met him at, I was asking this realtor about, some places to stay because I literally am living out of my car. And he was like, yeah, I'm actually showing a house to a guy that used to be Arnold Palmer's caddy if you want me to set up a lunch, and I was like, dude.
Talk about synchronicity. Yeah. Dude. Before social media, that's a real deal.
Let me shower in the sink real quick, get ready for this interview. But it wasn't an interview. It was just an opportunity to hear his life story. And I just listened, asked a few questions, and he just went on a tear. But the energy that just kind of came out of him and the excitement of that part of his life, I could feel like it was almost as if that was the highlight of his life. He was showing me the highlight reel.
And that had a profound impact. It changed your life and the trajectory of everything that you're going to do from that point on.
Storytelling can be that powerful. We all have a story. It relates to all of us. We all have a unique story, unique to ourselves, unique to just us. And there's a reason for that story. And I always encourage people, share your story. It doesn't have to be on a podcast, but just share it, even if it's to yourself. Just write something to yourself. Write things to yourself. Write love letters to yourself. How often do we spend putting our time and energy into others for them to like us and courting others? And yet, how often do we court ourselves?
Oh, man. That's some words of wisdom right there. So this conversation, like how quickly after this conversation were you like, I need to figure out how to become and do that, what you just shared with me, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so I'm not a big how do I figure this out, plan it out. I'm much more throw me in the fire. I'll learn to kind of just melt. Throw me in a pool is probably a better analogy. I'll learn to swim. It's just, I just got in my car and started driving. I'll figure it out. That's what life is about. Life is a figuring process. And so it was a matter of let me get in the car and let me pursue this opportunity to be a caddy on the PGA Tour and see what that's like and build that relationship. And this is right at the cusp of when Tiger and Stevie are just such a dynamic team. You can see their teammates out there, and it's just making caddying looking like the most beautiful, epic job on the planet. But you don't know it till you're in it. So I immersed myself into that.
Yeah, it's beautiful because this is a good point too, is you have a vision or a dream and this knowing that sparked within you of that seems very interesting. I want to explore that. So you put your energy into pursuing, I want to be a caddy on the PGA Tour. Obviously, you can't just go to the PGA Tour and call them up and say, hey, I want to be a caddy. But it's putting that energy out and then allowing the universe and the opportunities to present themselves and the synchronicities to happen. So what was the first initial step of how did you get involved on that path? And then how long did it take you to become, an actual caddy on the PGA Tour, and where did that journey lead you?
So, it was much harder than I originally assumed. I was in a parking lot for quite some time. What's nice about the PGA Tour is that they showcase their schedule. They tell you where they're going to be, and that predictability allowed me to plan. Or lack of a better word, at least just show up. And so for me, who is a 23-year-old kid who really doesn't care about what others think about him because there's no social media, there's no one judging me. I'm sleeping in my car, and I think that's kind of rad. Of course, I'm the only person that I am talking to and have to and press.
Yeah, now they call it van life, and all the kids are doing it.
Yeah, van life. And you can show that on social media.
Yeah,
And that
like
can
look what
become a
I'm doing,
thing.
and you can get paid for it. And it's like the actual thing that you're doing is living in your car. And
Yeah, I can look back on that and I can focus on the living on the car part, but that's actually not what I felt every day. Every day I felt this excitement and encouragement because I was moving towards something. And if you're moving towards something, I don't think you really care about the steps. And I didn't need to show off in any particular way. I just knew I felt really good inside. I felt that North Star inside myself say, yeah, everything you're doing is exactly where you need to be.
Have you always had a connection to that knowing inside of you? Because I think that's the big thing that people get disconnected from with societal programming, indoctrination, going to school, especially public education, going to college. And it's like this story is so ingrained in our society of what success looks like, what the next step looks like. You need to get a job that you can grow in. And, obviously you realize from a very young age, like that's not the path for me. And it seems like you've been connected to this calling on your heart and being able to follow that from a young age. Where would you attribute that to? Is it just an essence of who you are?
It's a great question. I can only speak from my vantage point, but I actually would surmise that we all have that. I would have to just believe that. That's nothing like that I've done. Maybe it's just something I've accessed, but like for me, I think that that's what actually lies beyond fear. When you can look beyond the fear of like not being stable or what your family might think of you, or even what you might even think of yourself, the judgment that you have for yourself. If you can get beyond that, then the only thing left, I believe, is the thing you want to do. And the next step is figuring out how to do that.
You must have had a good childhood then, good upbringing with your parents. Like, I think one of the biggest things for me with that is, I think the religious upbringing and the fear and the shame that comes with being raised in like a belief structure that's kind of closed-minded or narrow-minded on reality. And having to break out of that was part of my story. So I'm just curious if someone that was cultivated, that nurtured within you, like growing up in your family dynamic of, hey, you can create your reality, trust this inner knowing. Was that something that was talked about and you learned about, or you just kind of always had it?
Spiritual father, religious mother. So both like kind of ends of the spectrum, and also both gave me an opportunity to choose. One was very strict, one was very lenient. My father being the lenient one, spirituality. We're just here for a brief moment. This body is just to be used as a tool, and then we give it back.
Did they ever have conflict, your mom and your dad, because of that?
They divorced.
Okay. I was gonna say that's like a foundational thing,
Yeah, and that's okay. That was what best served them. Even through the divorce, I was like 13. Even through that, I kind of had a knowing that like, okay, mom's not happy, dad's not happy. Separately, they'll probably be happy. And I watched that, and happiness is like, at least, I'll say happiness, but essentially just pursuing what you want is something that should be encouraged more. Like this is your life. This is yours. Like someone gave birth to you and they gave you that gift, and it's a waste to squander it away on fear, or maybe even, and I know there's patterns and I know that there's certain like confines, but those are to break through. Those barriers are meant for you to like actually find your way out, to find that you are in some kind of prison that you actually hold the key to. That's the journey. That's part of it. That's part of your story, that all of us have this unique story. And it's that's why I just encourage the telling of it, because we all have one. And so it's the most relatable thing that we have for connection.
Totally. At 13, that must have been, was there challenges? Do you remember when that was actually happening and you had to process and get to a point where like, this is for the best? Or was the energy so intense at home that it was like, I can see and feel that this is going to be better for everyone? I mean, 13 years old is a pretty formidable year to experience that kind of experience, really.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to a question of how do you see life? Like, how do you see it? Is it an opportunity? Is it a green light? Is it a red light that holds you? What is life? But an opportunity to constantly give you this classroom. My mom was a classroom teacher. So if I took anything away from just watching her, it was to view life as such, to view it as a classroom where there are life lessons that continuously happen, and to feel into those, to not ignore them. And I found out that some life lessons I'm really good at, some not so much, just like subjects.
Yeah, I love that. And travel, I'm sure, has helped expand your worldview in a pretty big way. I know it has for me. So let's get back to the going. And so you just start showing up at these different golf tournaments, hoping to meet the right person and get your foot in the door?
Well, I mean, isn't that what we do in life most of the time anyway? We show up. We show up and we hope. Hope is a big part of what keeps that passion and dream alive for us. We need hope. And this was hope. This was hope that someone's personality would alchemize with mine, and that there would be chemistry, and that I could forge a life that I wanted, at least from the perception of what I wanted. And I could talk a little bit about that, because when we get something, it's not always what we think it's going to be. And that's another beautiful lesson. But ultimately, that is exactly what I did. I went from place to place and just continuously put myself out there. Hey, do you need a caddy? Oh, middle finger. Nice. Okay, thank you. Hey, you need a caddy? Okay, thank you. I appreciate that too. No answer. Ignore me as if I'm not here. It was almost like it had a very a beggar feel to it, as if I was someone who needed something from them and was asking for help, and the avoidance of that.
Because that carries a frequency to it, when it's like this scarcity frequency of I need something, as opposed to I can offer something.
Yeah. I mean, I actually feel it every time I go into the mall. The middle kiosks, the people in the middle kiosks that kind of like move outwardly to like offer you like this
like
skin cream.
Bubbling around them.
Like, yeah, ooh, I don't want that. I don't want that. Because they are taking away some aspect of your time. And it's where you're at. Are you busy? Do you have time to allocate towards that? But yeah, that was a really tough energy to be in, but to learn no, and then to build a relationship with the comfortability.
Yeah, being able to handle rejection seems like something that you've been able to do.
Yeah, well, that's forced learning. Yeah. Sometimes that we all should actually go through some type of no rejection class. It could be like an online thing that's offered, because it's important. That's what helps us build enough calluses to be able to lift the weight that we want to in life. So
did it discourage you at all hearing these no's?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I'm human. I want to be wanted and needed and to be a part of a tribe. I want to connect with others, and I want to feel like I matter and that people could utilize me. There's a big difference between using and utilizing.
So did you have doubt ever come up when you're like, how many times did you hear no before you finally got that opportunity? What was that like?
I mean, it wasn't like I was like, I'm going to give 100, 1,000 no. Yeah, I didn't have anything. I just was like, this doesn't feel good, but I'll just keep going. Because I honestly, what else do I have? What else am I going to do? I've put myself in this situation where I'm in Kansas, Wichita, Kansas. I don't know anybody. I'm bored. So boredom or actually get rejected. Actually, get rejected sounds like at least it has some type of interaction.
At least I'm doing something.
Yeah, boredom. I'm just sitting in my car, just like maybe reading or just studying like a map or something of the next city that I'm going to be going to, because you don't have this device.
Yeah.
You had to literally pull up the big atlas and, okay, Chicago. Oh God, this city's huge. All right, where are the rest areas? Circle all the rest areas.
Road trip in.
Yeah. Okay. Where are the YMCA gyms? That's where I'm showering. So there was some plan. It just wasn't wasn't staying at the Fairmont Hotel.
And a lot of these tournaments are the same golfers at all these tournaments. So did they start like recognizing how many cities did you actually go to?
Yeah. So I will preface this, going out on the PGA Tour, even back then, because that's tiger time. It was high. The security was heightened then. was impossible. I was able to get in a couple parking lots, if you will, on PG events, but not able to stay there. That was quickly pointed out.
This guy's living
and
here.
ushered out. Yeah, exactly. However, I was fortunate to be in it enough that some caddies and what have you gave me some advice about kicking it down to a lower, kind of tier, if you will. And that was at that time the Nationwide, which I believe became the web.com, which now is the Corn Ferry tour, switching sponsors on me. But that was a tour where it was a lot more communal. What fascinating to watch the energy difference when you go from almost like the elitist, the PGA Tour, you've made it tour, to a tour where we're trying to make it. And the camaraderie that came with that. Caddies were staying with players. Players were splitting dinners with caddies. Like, I was like, whoa, family. This is family oriented. I like this. There wasn't a tremendous amount of money. So there wasn't the incredible division and separation of these unique cliques that happen on the PGA Tour, like the camps, if you will. If you're in a Tiger camp, if you're in like a Bubba's camp, if you're in a VJ Singh's camp, there was hardly any interaction with the others.
Yeah, because I'm sure it's like similar to like PGA Tour. There's probably such a disparity of the people at the top making the millions of dollars and winning the tournaments to the people that, have their PGA Tour card, but they're not really winning. They're maybe in the middle of the pack and there's not a lot of money in the middle of the pack. So they're still trying to make it. Similar to a football locker room where, 80, 90% of the money is going to the top 5 guys on the team. And then you have, guys that are in the practice squad making 80 grand a year. And then our top player, when I was playing him, now it's like, some guys are making $50 million a year, which is crazy. $10, $15 million a year at the top, 80,000 at the bottom. And so it's interesting, like how that energy dynamic plays in a team as it continues to evolve. But it seems going to more of a minor league type of golf tour, everybody's trying to make it. So the energy is a lot more cohesive and connected. Yeah,
I mean that's the antithesis. I mean, that is what a team is. It is like this coming together of so many unique backgrounds and skill sets, and you all have different positions, and you all work to the greater good. Where what's so unique about caddying is it's actually a forced teammate. The laws within golf are very traditional, and it is mandatory to have a caddy. And when you are not playing well as a player and you still have to pay your caddy, it creates almost a resistance for that person to even be there. Almost like they are one of the hindrances, one of the obstacles that's keeping you from your dream of getting to the highest level.
Did you ever experience that personally?
Yeah, of course. It's not even, you feel it. Because they write the check.
Is there a minimum payment for caddies to be on the league, or is that like worked out between you and the golfer?
Every person works something different out. Some people did it for just so cheap because they had some type of KOA camp card where they could stay at different locations. Others, everyone comes from different backgrounds, so everyone does have a different payout structure. Although there is a standard that's been set. And I'll just share that it's usually you get a base.
And how much is that base usually?
I can't speak to what it is now. It could be up to like 2,000, maybe 2,500 a week
per tournament.
Per tournament.
Okay.
I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
Just based off of it was 1,000 when I was caddying, and then from there, there's a payout percentage. So it's almost like a performance bonus for the week.
So if you win the tournament, then you're getting X percentage of the winnings.
A win is usually 10%. Anything in the top 10 is 7%, and then 5% for everything else. Now, I have heard, I still have some friends at Caddie, I have heard that they've changed those numbers a little bit, which is cool. And now there's some things like the Live Tour that have come out, and those are completely different models. So they'll have to find a different payment structure.
Yeah.
There isn't a weekend cut. Whereas you're trunk slamming it on Friday if you didn't play good, and you're having to write a painful check to your caddy. You made no money, so you're losing money And so it's like being part of collections. You're like,
Okay, by the way, you got to pay me.
You owe. You don't want to say that, but you have bills too. You have flights, you have hotels, you have food.
Yeah.
All those things too.
So take us through the journey of working your way up into the greater ranks of caddying. Where did you start? Where was that first opportunity? And then tell us some stories of that process that it took to continue to get to where you did.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough. I happened to be hanging out at a Monday qualifying round. There was this kid that was just lights out. He was just so good. And I watched him. And I was like, who is that? Because I didn't follow college golf. Someone that I had talked to did, and they were like, oh, that's Jeff Overton. That guy is sick. He just like won the Walker Cup for the United States, made a great putt, and he's gonna be a gamer. So it's like almost like horse betting, You're like, oh, okay, yeah. And so now I gotta like court him, if you will. So
what is that process like?
It can be a number of things, especially for young kids that come out of college. They are very cocky. They think they're the next Tiger Woods. Most every single one of them does.
I feel like you have to have some sort of that arrogance to even perform at that level of golf with all the eyes on you.
That's right. So, they're eyeing you up and down. It's like asking a girl out, They step back, they look at you, check you out, like, I guess you'll do.
I mean, do you approach them and say, hey, I want to be your caddy, or do they line 10 potential candidates up and it's like a game show?
Oh, man, that would be cool. Speed dating for caddying. No, it actually is who asked them out. They're like the hot girl, if you will.
Everybody's asking them out?
Everyone is.
Wow.
Yeah. And, this guy is being like, heckled, by like all these, a few people. So I remember giving him my business card. I was one of the few caddies that had a business card. I had my name on the back of my shirt. So I was like, hey, it's Fish, just in case you forget. I have a number back there too, number 3. And he was like, who are you? And I was like, I'm a player assistant. I don't go by caddy. I'm here to like help you with performance, nutrition. I could stretch you out. I got a physiotherapist background. Like I was kind of like letting him know, like, I'm just more than a caddy. And
were caddies doing this at that time?
No, I wanted to kind of change the standard of that. I think my father gave me some really good advice when I told him I didn't have the skills needed to be a good caddy. Sorry, if I told him I didn't have the experience needed to be a good caddy, he was like, well, trade experience for skills. Bring a tremendous amount of skills to the table. Like, what would you want out of a caddy? If you were going to hire a caddy, what would you want them to be able to do? Other than just carry a bag, keep up, and shut up.
Yeah, especially if they're writing a check. I mean, that's a good thing to sell. Is like, hey, you're not just writing me a check to stand with you and golf with you and kind of just carry your bag, but I can actually improve your performance in all of these wide varieties of different ways.
Absolutely.
Wow, and this is way before your like the time of this human optimization and functional like movement and all this stuff that's taken place. Is that something that you enjoyed at a young age? You said you had a phys ed kind of degree, so you've always been passionate about the physiology of the body?
Super passionate. My dad tried to have me like build a computer with him. Boring. He had me like take apart a car for a summer. Not my favorite summer as a child. But the human anatomy, that lit me up. Pay attention to the things that just kind of just bring so much excitement. Now, I can't tell you why. And maybe that's some past life regression. I don't know. But I can tell you when I'm like, oh, yeah, well, that's because the distal attachment is on the lesser trochanter of the femur. Like, and I'm just like, what? Like, I don't even know what that, like, how am I, it's like I speak a different language. Like I understand things about the body very easily. And I don't even speak Latin. So it just came very natural to me. I took anatomy and physiology in college, and it just was one of those subjects that came easily.
So this is a real differentiator when you're pitching yourself to court. Was it this specific golfer that you asked?
Yeah, Jeff Overton. Yeah, at the time. He goes on to become actually a really good player. He ends up becoming a Ryder Cupper, which is really impressive. Not with me, but I did start him on that journey. So
how long were you with him for?
I had to pursue him longer than it wasn't like a one night stand kind of thing. I had to he did not give me the job. He played hard to get. So I went to the next tournament, and I believe one more tournament after that, maybe Boise. And I gave him my card again. He's like, "You're relentless." I was like, "I want this." And he's like, "I don't even know you." And I'm like,
"Let's go on a date. Let's get to know each other.
Yeah, let's get to know.
I'll wear my makeup and everything."
I was just like, "Hey, you're in Boise, Idaho. Who do you know here? Nobody. You know me, though. You see me 3 weeks straight." And he was like, "That is true." Yeah, I had built some type of familiarity.
Yeah.
And so he gave me the job that week. I'll never forget, not in person. He walked away. He called me. He walked away, probably called his agent, made sure his agent couldn't caddy for him. Then he called me. He's like, "It's your lucky day. You're going to be caddying for Jeff Overton." And I'm like, is he speaking to himself in third person right now? But I was just so elated that I'm like, "Hey, you won't regret it. I'll be the best girlfriend / caddy you've ever had." So I was just, I was so excited for this. I remember just "I'll be there. I'll see you on Monday," and just hanging up the phone and just the equivalent of what a cartwheel. I can't do cartwheels or anything like that, but backflips. But it was exploding inside. I went after something. It took me some time, but I got my first opportunity to be with a good player. This isn't even a PGA Tour.
So this is your first caddy job?
No, it's not my first caddy job. I took a couple of caddy jobs. I didn't get paid a couple of times.
More like side jobs, is trying to get more experience. But this is your first player.
This is my first player that's got potential. Yeah. So I've I'm on the slowest horse, kind of thing. And now I've actually got a horse that can move. It's young. It's got some potential.
Yeah, and you get an opportunity to train him as well, not just caddy for him. So what is that process like? You show up on Monday. How do you build that relationship, and what is the actual role of a caddy throughout, not just showing up, I'm sure, during game time, but actually cultivating that relationship? What is that like?
Yeah, well, so you have to understand, he doesn't know what that's like, and nor do I.
Oh, that's the best case scenario.
So we're just we're trying to feel our way to golf first base, if you will. I'm trying to figure out exactly, does he even like me? And can I even be myself? And I will tell you, he's like, "These are the 3 things that I like." And he lets me know what those 3 things are. And I'm like, "I will do these religiously." And
what were those 3 things? Do you remember?
Well, it was very strange. He liked to have the cap on every one of these players has their own quirks. He liked to have the cap just barely off, not tighten the full way this on the water. Cap on the water, just
like a half twist, so it doesn't fall
twist.
off.
Yeah, because he would twist it off and then he would twist it back on. It was almost like a nervous kind of. He would just barely, not even sip it, but pretend to, and then twist back on. It was like a nervous kind of tick that he had.
And he'd do it. So before a shot, when you're walking up to the ball and he wanted to drink of water, you'd give him that way and he would do this. Is it before every shot?
Not quite, but pretty regularly. Yeah, wow. And which is great because it lets me know how I need to show up. The other one was very strange. It was most caddies will keep the bag very close to the ball and the player until the club is chosen, and then they'll move the bag. He liked the bag really close to the ball, almost is this legal? Being this close? It looked like it might have even been a training to keep him on, a training aid to keep him on the right plane. I didn't know. I don't know any of the rules. So I'm like, how legally, how close am I supposed to be? So, what was really cool, and I want to actually share a little story. It was the second hole that we're playing. I'll never forget it. He's like, "Hey, where do I go here?" And I've never been here before, so I'm like, "Oh, here? Yeah, no problem. Let's see here. Let me pick something really good. Okay, that tree in the distance. See that tree?" And he can tell I'm kind of not very confident. He's like, "Yeah, I see the tree." I was like, "Yeah, okay, good. Okay, that tree just to the right of it, that's a perfect target line." And then I step away and don't say anything. And he's just like, "All right, okay." And so he hits his shot and he hits this thing off the planet to the right. It's a huge slice. It goes out of bounds. It's way. And he comes back to the bag and he's like, "Don't you ever tell me to hit it right." He's like, "There's your right. That's what happens when you tell me right." He's like, "Don't put directions in my mind." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, I didn't realize like that would be a problem. Okay, all right. Well, it's good to know. So uh, I'll never forget it because the next hole, he asks me again. And I'm thinking like, I thought we already had this conversation. I thought you were just gonna, do your own thing for a while. But so now there's a lot. My heart is racing. I've never had so much trepidation, like just to speak to someone. Like every word you say is like, it matters.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I get up to the ball. And he's like, what do I do? And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. That's probably my first, inception to like breath work.
Regulating your nervous system.
Okay. So you just see that tree out there? I'm like shaking. See that tree out there? He's like, yeah, I see that tree. I'm like, yeah, okay. Just hit it to the outside of the tree. Just gesture just to the right of it with a gesture, And I see him like, okay. And he just stripes it exactly where I want. I'm like, oh, whew, I cracked the code. We had lots of turmoil throughout our time together, but I will say he made it through the qualifying school, which is a huge deal. And he's like, you've done a great job for me. I'm going to give you the first 5 events on the PGA Tour. And that was just like, wow, so cool.
You made it.
Yeah, he made it. Yeah, he made it. First year out.
Wow. And you got a chance to be on the PGA Tour. How old were you at this point? How long did that process take?
Yeah, I probably turned 24, during that process.
Wow. So within a year of having this story told you, this vision of wanting to be on the PGA Tour, you have
8 months.
Wow.
I even had a few caddies come over to me in Hawaii, which is the first event of the regular season, and say, hey, just so you know, a lot of us have spent years getting here. Just remember that. And I'm not sure what that really meant, but I had that energy pushed on me by other caddies. They're veterans. They're like 50 and they've been on the tour off and on, and or maybe this is their first time ever making it. And I'm like, damn, there's some interesting energy.
Yeah, they probably, spent years of their life, if not longer, to accomplish this dream of being on the PGA Tour where you got to do it in 8 months.
Yeah, but what do I know?
Is that a part of the culture of golf? Is there that like real like hard to get in, but once you're in, you got to earn the respect?
Definitely the first part. I don't even know if the second part even comes.
Yeah, if you never earn respect, just because there's always this, because it's an individual sport, so there's always this like energy of competition.
There is. I mean, even the golf instructors who come out on tour to help the players, let's just say, a big name player is hitting balls. You think the golf instructor who's a little further back would be like, hey, just move that ball back in your stance. He doesn't. He walks over to the player and gets right in his ear. Whispers. Whatever he says. Makes it look very like elusive, or like maybe even like, are you trying to be smarter than you are? As a caddy, you're in earshot of everything. So you hear it all. So you are the gatekeeper of all the secrets and all the things that are said. And it's not like the NFL where you can mic up the entire like arena. You can only ask players if you can mic them up. And when you do, and when they say yes, because they're members of the PGA Tour, when they say yes, you best believe they don't say anything interesting. They know they're mic'd up. There's nothing being said that's of value.
What are some of the stuff that you've heard say that would be interesting? All the above?
These are humans. These are human beings out there, and there's something that obviously there's, we put on airs, but like golfers are just, they're hardly ever showcased. Like all that you see is just them hitting the shot. You hardly even hear the exchange and the dialogue between the caddy. They're starting to do that more because that's a fascinating interaction. And I think that they should do that more.
Yeah, as a fan, that's what I'm like curious about is like, what are those conversations like and how did that evolve over time?
You're going to love this.
Yeah.
I am a very like, if I have just sunken my teeth into something, I'll own it. And I went to a spy shop and I purchased one of those microphones that you can you can aim towards someone and listen in on their conversation. This is prior to like any kind of recordings that happen. And I followed Tiger and Stevie the entire round. I got my microphone, I got my headphones, and I'm like pointing it toward them. I'm trying to hear their conversation because I want to know what is said between them.
And this is the intention of this is for you as a caddy to learn what the great caddies are doing, great players are doing, so that you can improve as a caddy. Is that
exactly?
Yeah.
Because every time that I ask a great caddy, how did you become great? They don't have a 12-step process to sell me like business coaches would.
Sure.
They're just like this. To become a great caddy, you must actually find a great player. And I'm like, thanks for the help. That does nothing for me. There's only like 6 of those on the planet. But it just takes years. It takes years, like it, and it should. It should.
Totally. Just like everything else. So what were some of the takeaways, some of the impactful things you learned from spying in on Tiger Woods and his caddy?
Well, I didn't learn as much as I thought I would. Like, honestly, like Tiger's just so good.
You learned about the affair before anybody else.
Yeah. We're all out there. We're cognizant of a lot of things that are happening, I have my own take on that whole thing, but, maybe for another time. But the truth of the matter is that, they weren't saying anything that I wasn't saying. A great caddy doesn't speak much. And I also learned that a rookie caddy doesn't speak much either. So there's not a lot of difference. It is actually in how you present and how you say something. And do you show up? They can feel if you know that is the right choice. If I say as a new caddy, I think it's the 7. I like 7. And the word is, you think? Or if it's the 7 all day. There's a big difference, and the caddy player dynamic is a very cultivated energy exchange. And if anything, that has really set the tone for what I do now. Because I was always of the importance of like, hey, if I could just bottle up what caddying is in its essence, it's because it's true support for someone. Like on this golf course, out in the world, nobody cares what you're doing. Nobody's really rooting for you. Not really. They don't really know you. But your caddy out on that golf course is your only companion. Like it's the only person that is out there on that golf course that is fully there to help you win. Like they're your biggest cheerleader. They can be your biggest asset. They can be like, hey, I know you're pissed. Just lean into me and just say everything you need to say. Get it out. And they can just be like, you fucking mother. And they can just, you can be that punching bag for them.
Holding space.
Holding space before I even knew what holding space was.
Yeah.
And I was like, if every single person could have a caddy, it would ultimately change the world.
Like in life.
100%. If they could have a caddy in life. And I think that's what somatic breathwork, this new endeavor is all about.
Yeah, we're going to get into that later for sure. So let's take us through more of the journey. So you were with him for a year.
Yeah.
And then how does the evolution of Fish kind of working your way up the ranks begin incorporating more of this fitness, functional movement, taking care of the body, which is radical, to having a caddy that really does that? How did that journey unfold for you after this first experience?
Well, I think with every kind of little mountain, there must be a D summit of that mountain. And after 5 tournaments, which wasn't long at all, Jeff honored that agreement. Unfortunately, not longer than I would have hoped, and he let me go after 5 events. So I had to go back down to the at that time the nationwide tour, and I found another great player, and I worked with him, and I helped and caddied for a couple other players, and actually got to experience what it was like to work with other players.
Yeah, having that experience of multiple different personalities, players, how they do it, because then you can start developing yourself as a caddy as opposed to just trying to meet someone else's needs.
That's right. That's right. And so it was really instrumental in that process for me, becoming a better space holder. You have to have range. You can't just be the person that is great at like holding someone when they cry. You've got to be able to like be with them through their anger too. And so that's what that was for me. And it built range, it built capacity. And I found another player named Chris Stroud, who I ended up working with at the end of that season, which he then went through all 3 stages of Q school. I was starting to develop a little reputation, I was like, man, like
if you're a young guy who wants to make it, you can bring Fish on as your caddy.
That's
we'll
right.
Get there.
Yeah, you should nickname me Asbestos. I'm fireproof. So it was just one of these things where I was starting to like really connect with the younger players who were interested in changing their behaviors and their patterns because they had watched Tiger and they were into fitness and they were into human optimization and performance. My days are long. They are long. It is not as luxurious as I want to just walk you through my day and then my week.
I would love to hear, yeah.
My day starts at 6 a.m., if not earlier. I'm up. I am making and preparing the food prep to throw it in the bag if I actually am the person that carries the clubs, because sometimes the player brings them or leaves them at the clubhouse. I then get to the golf course pretty early. There is there's a lot of waiting around in the beginning because who knows, the player sleeps in. I mean, you're on his time. So player sleeps in, maybe he actually gets some breakfast, maybe showers, cleans up, in the comforts of the locker room. I'm in a little tent in the rain, whatever, what have you. I'm making sure I'm watching the weather, man. I'm making sure everything's in there as far as weatherproofing, umbrellas, packing it full, the food's in there. He's coming out. I've got my book prepared because when I'm not with him, I'm actually usually walking the golf course to kind of make sure that everything looks good. It's my first time. I'm a rookie, so I need to see what these courses look like. So I spend my day waking up early, getting the bag ready. Then I go actually caddy for him. And that is a long round because it's a practice round and we're trying to see the entire course, maybe 18 holes. A lot of the young players, they just have all the energy in the world. So play 18 holes. Then from there, he's like, hey, what do you want to do as far as like stretching me out or, and I'm like, I'll stretch you out. He leaves the course. He's like, hey, you want to train me later? And I'm like, yeah, I'll meet up with you later. In the meantime, I go to, out to the golf course. He heads back to his hotel. I walk the golf course. I put some laser reflectors in the front of the green. I go to all the sprinkler heads. I laser it, make sure all the numbers are appropriate and correct. And then from there, I check to see where he's at. He wants to get trained. So then I drive over to his hotel or find a gym locally where I train him. We go through some performance movements, some stability, mobility work. Then I'm like, hey, are you looking for like some ART, which is active release techniques, or essentially some MAT, or maybe even some massage? Because I became a massage therapist somewhere in this journey. I didn't explain that part, but it became an LMT. And then from there, I would be like, okay, cool. It's like, I don't know, let's see, it's like 8:00 p.m., and I'm like, all right, well, so I'm going to head on out. And he's like, okay, no worries. So I head back to the golf course. Sun is setting. And I take a coal miner's lamp out with me because you only have this limited amount of time that you can be on the golf course. Once the pro-am starts, no caddies are allowed to walk the golf course. You can't see it. Can't do any of your like calculating. Thursday, you're playing. Friday, you're praying you make the cut. Saturday, Sunday is the tournament. And Monday is the travel day. Sunday night or Monday morning is the travel day. Tuesday's the practice round again. You don't get much time and you have to get yourself from like St. Louis to Chicago in a very short window of time. You hope there's no flight cancellations. So I take a coal miner's lamp out at night and I put a green leveler every 5 yards. I pace it off and I put tees down and I grid the entire green. And then I put a green leveler on the green to show the slope. And I have a beautiful readout of exactly what the green looks like and what its tendency for a putt or even an approach shot would do. So
Are you doing this for every green?
evergreen,
Wow.
all 18
How long does that take?
hours.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be done till like probably like 11 or 12 at night.
Wow.
I like had no life.
Is there any other caddies out there with you doing that?
I don't think so.
Maybe a little bit more now.
Well, honestly, I was doing that a lot because that was an insecurity. I thought that I needed to really like get all this data and information because I that's how I knew I could help my player. But that was like a very intellectual way to go about it. I realized, I'm not going to talk about this, but I did get fired from the tour at one point in time, and I didn't think I was going to come back. I ended up coming back, but the next time I actually put my energy, my time into actually relationships far more than the data.
The intuitive component to what is the player need, what is happening in the moment.
Well, and I just knew, I started making a list of everyone's name and who the caddies were. And when I saw them, I made sure I like knew who they were and I had a genuine interaction. I knew the agents. I started building a network. Before, I'm just some kid that they never see. And I'm on a golf course in the dark, hearing like jungle noises all around me the whole time. It was a lot of energy and effort. And I wasn't sure what the kickback or payout was. That when my player fired me, I didn't know any other players.
So you're trying to get ahead in the game and make a name for yourself. And you thought by doing all this extra work by yourself would get you there. And you realize the power of actually investing all that energy into network, community, people, so that I will move up the ranks because of who I know and what they know about me as well.
Yeah. Into humans. And that's where ultimately everything shifted as far as my success on the PGA.
And how far into your journey was that?
I would say probably like 3 years in, but it's great that I went through that, plus I had all those yardage books.
Yeah.
Now I will tell you, technology has drastically improved. These yardage books are actually done through like Google Maps now down to like the inch.
Wow.
And the green level books, they bring in, at least there is a guy who brings in a device and he puts them at 4 corners of the green and it levels the entire green. You can purchase a green book for like, I don't know, $100.
Would have saved you hours. Probably days worth of life.
Yeah.
Amazing,
years,
dude.
it feels like, but it was cool.
So tell us how you met Bubba Watson and how you developed that relationship, became his caddy, and what that meant for you. How did it feel? And talk about the journey with him.
Yeah. My actual call from Bubba, I actually thought was a prank because I had been caddying for Ryan Moore, who's a really accomplished player in his own right. And I had been working with him and training him, and it had kind of tanked his game. Honestly, he had played like shit for, like 6-7 weeks. I was like, damn, what's going on? But there are a lot of changes. There's a ton of variables I was throwing in there.
You're doing stuff that he's not normally doing, like
never done it before.
Physiological body stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's sore, and we're just doing a lot of different cool stuff, and honestly, a lot of times I'm not sure really. There's so many variables. I'm not maybe sure what I'm doing, and that's okay.
Like if I'm doing too much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This guy's traveling a ton. He's had some surgeries on his wrist, and I'm like, ooh, I don't really know. I mean, I don't want to change his swing, and I'm not trying to be a swing coach here. I'm just trying to be a human optimized like performance coach. I'm trying to make sure that he feels great. Because these golfers, they really they work off of that. They feel great. They perform great.
That's it.
And so probably my biggest rival is Bubba Watson. He is a player that's pretty new. He's not new to the tour, but he's, I don't know if he's really made a name for himself, but him and Ryan are really good friends. And he loves to just harp on Ryan for just working out, making fun of him actually more than anything else. Like, yeah, I can't believe you're doing that. That's so stupid. Fish, you're about 3 weeks out from losing your job. Like really kind of like, I was like, damn, I'm actually not enjoying. We need to eliminate this relationship. I need to break these two up because it's not good for me.
Yeah.
And actually Ryan ends up actually letting me go eventually. And probably I'd say like 2 months later, I get a call from Bubba and I think it's a prank. And he's like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring you. I'm like, for what? Like, what do you need me for? You actually have never worked out. You don't care about working out. You're just a very natural player, very feel oriented, never had a lesson. Brags that he's never had like a coaching lesson before. Who's he going to listen to? And he's like, no, if you came on, I definitely would like take into consideration what you're saying and, maybe do it. And I'm like, wasting my time. But I called, I called a couple people that I knew Bubba very well, including his caddy then, Ted Scott. I was like, hey, what does Bubba struggle with? What's like his biggest like obstacle to overcome? Is that like attention? Is that stress? And so he gave me a list of things that like Bubba really struggles with. He'd been caddying for Bubba for 3 years. And when I pitched Bubba, I finally called Bubba back. I pitched him and I told him these are the things that he's going to get better at. He's like, dude, those are all the things I struggle with. And I was like, no way. That's wild. Well, let's see, let's give it a chance. Also, keep in mind, I've learned a little bit about from Ryan Moore's debacle that you're probably not going to play great right off the bat.
Yeah.
I was also like, hey, so you got to give this at least a minimum of 6 weeks.
Yeah, set the expectations.
Yeah, which I did. And on the 6th week, he was on me. He's like, hey, I've missed 6 straight cuts. I know you said 6 weeks, but I've missed 6 straight cuts. I can't keep this up. And I was like, just one more. There's only one more tournament in the entire year left. So might as well just give me that. And he came in like 6th.
Wow.
And so, whew, yeah, good thing.
Thank God, 6 weeks was right on point.
Whew, yeah.
How often is the caddy turnover? Because it seems like there's a lot. Does it depend if someone finds someone they love that they have the multi-year relationship, or is it a pretty high turnover where people are always like shifting it?
Yeah, I mean, think about relationships. This is an interesting analogy, but I think it's apropos. It's like if there is chemistry between two partners, let's just say maybe even the connection is good, the sensuality is good, the sex is good, the actual energetic exchange is good, you stay with that partner. If it's not, then you go your separate ways. With caddying, there's really no sensuality or maybe sexuality going on. So it's essentially, hey, we will replace that with essentially like success on the golf course. So that's what determines a lot of things and determines whether a dynamic stays. I know plenty of players that actually do not respect and even like their caddy, but their on-course success is just undeniable.
Well, that's not a way you'd probably like to work, huh? If like you don't vibe with somebody, or you just
not me, but I mean some players. Well, I think it really comes down to is some players actually really need an outlet to express themselves.
Yeah, so they don't want to get close to their caddy because they want that business relationship and it to be boundaries around that as opposed to let's be friends, let's have dinner together.
It's a big boundary. Yeah, it's a big boundary game. You have to learn what your boundaries are. It makes it that much harder when you're friends with someone to let them go.
So that final game, that final round, he comes in top 10. And he's like, okay, let's stick. That's the last round of the last tournament of the season. So you guys decide to stick with it. And
yeah, we did an off season.
How did that relationship develop?
Well, I'm pretty much like I said, I sink my teeth into something. I was like, hey, where do you spend your off seasons? I knew, but he's like, Scottsdale, Arizona. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I will move to Scottsdale, Arizona for the winter. And so I actually, as Bubba's success increased, he got a multitude of different locations and houses, but I always found myself going to wherever he needed me to be. I kept that flexibility. It mattered to me. I wasn't like, oh, hey, I'll see you after the off season, or I'll come out for a couple of weeks and we'll do some stuff. You want to make dynamic, significant change in someone's life, you have got to be there.
So how long did you guys work together? How long were you his caddy?
So I was never Bubba Watson's caddy. When he called me, his pitch was, hey, I know you're looking to caddy. You can kind of be my backup caddy when Teddy can't do it. But ultimately, I would like to hire you for like training.
Oh, beautiful.
Like to be like a performance coach solely. Like that would be your full job.
And how did that feel for you?
Well, that was a dream come true. Because ultimately, that's what I loved. And that's why I had these connections. That's why I was building this. I wanted to move towards optimization. I wanted to move to this ability of helping players with things that mattered. So for me, they're like their overall health, their life expectancy. Granted, you hit a golf ball and there's a big celebration around that. But to me, I really never cared. I didn't really care.
Wow,
he won lots of tournaments. Yeah, great. But
so how long did you work with him for?
I worked with Bubba for just shy of 5 years.
5 years. And that was right during his prime when he started really making a name for himself, right?
Well, you've now got this great team and I actually was training the entire team. I was training his wife. I was training his agent. I was training his caddy. I was training him. I made it like a cohesive thing. A lot that wasn't happening anywhere else. That was unique to that team. I saw a lot of other, let's just say, trainers that just were like revolving doors. They'd have a stable of like 6 or 7 guys, never going to bet on one horse. They'd have 6 or 7 guys. They'd train one at like 10 o'clock, the other one at 11 o'clock. They were just round table, in and out, like revolving doors. And that's all they did is train. And I never really loved that concept because it didn't nourish me. I love the idea of, instead of having one skill that I brought to a multitude of players, I love the idea of having one player that I brought a multitude of different skills to. And so I would find myself each weekend trying to go to a different location to learn a new modality, to learn something new and exciting that I could bring to him to help with his performance.
Wow. And it really helped improve his performance, right? Were you with him when he was at the Masters and ended up winning that year?
Yeah, I was.
What was that experience like?
That was cool. I actually thought for a fact that he was going to win the major before that. There was a major before that. It was at Whistling Straits. It was a PGA championship, and he was in a playoff. And I was like, we got this. He birdies the first hole, and I'm like, we win. And then I found out, like, oh, actually, it's not like a sudden death. Thank you. It's not a sudden death. It was a 3-hole playoff, whatever that means. So apparently I was like, what? That's stupid. Because we, of course, birdied the first hole. I think Martin wins the next one. And anyways, the point is Martin Keimer beats him on like the last hole. I mean, I to this day, I still don't know how he won that. But retrospectively, I look back and I'm like, I see why he didn't win that major.
Why is that?
Because the first major he was meant to win was the Masters. And that's a shot through the trees, curving it as he did. That's a shot that Bubba can do 10 out of 10 times. And he does it all the time when we're goofing around. I really believe, knowing Bubba very intrinsically like I do, that being in that position was the best thing he could have done. Because had he been in the middle of the fairway, I think he would have really felt the pressure to perform. And that's very intimidating. Having creativity be able to trump the pressure of that shot helped him so much.
That's powerful perspective. Wow.
I think it's a perspective that we all can take into it. We put so much pressure on ourselves, but what if we can actually focus on the creativity rather than the actual overwhelm or the stress or the pressure of the situation at hand?
Yeah, it takes the focus off the outcome of having the perfect shot in the fairway. I need to be perfect to do this. I don't want to fuck it up. And all of the things of the outcome come into play. When you have to be creative, you're like, I can't focus on the outcome because the outcome doesn't matter unless I figure out how to make this shot go over there. So it brings it back into the present moment.
Yeah. As a player, you have a lot of control over what you want to do with the shot. In that situation, the course actually forced Bubba for only one shot. He only had one shot available. And Bubba made it. And that was a really incredible thing. I actually was fortunate enough that I had seen that he had gone to a playoff and he was going to be another playoff. So I actually took a cart. I got lucky to grabbed a ride with someone, and I was on the 18th. At that time, it was the 10th green. I was on the 10th green watching that shot. So I watched it kind of go into the trees, and I was like, "Oh shit!" And then as soon as he hit the shot, everybody's like, "Oh God," because it looked like it was going to go into the trees. And then I knew it was going to curve because I've played so much with him, and I saw it curve, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's going to be so good!" And it like hits, and I'm like, "We just won the Masters." Although that we were far from like winning, but that's when I knew, when I just saw it curve in the air, and I just kind of, at one point in time, I just saw the trajectory and I was like, yep, we're right there. Cause I'm literally right behind the pin. When I first got there was no one there, but then other people started to gather. So it was really eerie to be like at Augusta in this heat of the moment with like no one around.
Wow.
Waiting for it. So it was really, really cool.
How long have you been working with Bubba when that experience was taking place?
Yeah, that was 2012. I started in 2009, so it had been like a 3-year stint.
So you had a really strong relationship with him and training him and seeing his evolution. So this is like a big moment.
I did. Now, it was never popularized that I was like working with Bubba. You know, it was almost like part of his persona was a grip it and rip it. I do it my own way, all natural, never been taught kind of persona. So they kept that at the forefront, you know, and I'm not saying hid me, but definitely it wasn't pushed.
Yeah, it wasn't like Tiger where it's like he's training all the time and showing his exercises and this is how he becomes so good. Yeah.
For sure. And that's okay. It was actually comical. And the reason I bring that up is because I don't know, let's just say Jim Nance is speaking and he's like, we have a new champion and his name is Bubba. You know, Bubba's hugging his caddy and then he's shaking some of the players' hands. You know, he hugs his caddy and then his mom comes up and, you know, they're like, oh, his mom is coming up. His dad is, you know, passed. And there's that exchange with his mom. Let's go with his mom. He shakes the hands of his competitors like Loose Deuces and his caddy. And then I'm walking up on the green. And so there's a really good footage of me just coming up and I look like I'm so young. I've got jeans on. I've got a t-shirt. I've got like a flat brim hat. And I'm walking up and I remember them saying something like, oh, and now his friends and family are coming out to greet him. And I was like, oh man. But we had a great long embrace. I'll have to send you some pictures of it. You know, maybe you could throw it on there. But it was really, really special. And what was so unique about that was then we're immediately transported into this like, you know, butler's cabin kind of thing. And, you know, and then there's all these people that I've never met my entire life, but you can energetically feel that they have some kind of significance within Augusta National as big decision makers, and they're shaking our hands, congratulations, this and that. And then there's a dinner. We're being like overwhelmed by tons of people and the congratulations.
And you got to be a part of all this.
I'm being part of all this.
So cool.
Because Bubba, like, he was very tight knitted, so his team went everywhere he went. He didn't really want to be anywhere. He didn't want to be somewhere his team wasn't.
Sure, especially in those situations because people can come. It's like a protective bubble of energy.
It was a protective bubble of energy for sure. Safety for sure.
Yeah.
And from that, they're immediately like, hey, let's put you on our flight. Let's put you on our jet. You know, Augusta National has a private jet. And so then Bubba flies home on that and they take him home. And Teddy and I go to dinner and we're sitting there, we're talking, and we're like, wow, you know what? This is that in the evening. I was like, you know, it really is so fleeting. Like, it's already lifted. I almost didn't even get to relish in it. There was no space in time. There's so much ceremony and this and that. And the space, the magic of space is kind of like taken. And if we really do understand holding space, as we've put it, you know, to hold that space so someone can then make space for themselves to take up space in the world. You know, if you really look at space, the space in between notes and music is when you actually get to hear it. When there's a space after a paragraph, that's when you finally get to comprehend what you've read. There was no space to enjoy it.
Interesting. So the victory happened and it was just moment after moment of like people, energy, filled the space, but no opportunity just to take a breath and be like, wow, look what we just did.
Yeah.
Wow.
And myself, I had planned something for myself, for me, that I didn't even really relate to Bubba winning. I didn't expect him to win. So I actually was on a plane to Lima, Peru. I actually had planned a little excursion through the Amazon to trek to the top of Kilimanjaro. Kilimanjaro. Machu Picchu. Sorry. Yeah, Kilimanjaro. That's another story, though. That's another story. I'm mixing two stories together. But yes, Machu Picchu. And so I actually leave Bubba in the thralls of all this success, and I fly out of the country, and I go through this incredible jungle trek, and I'm with people and interacting with them and building such a connection, and they don't have a fucking clue who Bubba Watson is. They don't even play golf. I don't know if there's even a golf course in Peru. You know, and it's just this incredible connection and an incredible ability for me to have space.
This was immediately following. The plane ride.
Immediately following. Wow. And I'm invited like 2 days later into this like ceremony, and I don't even know what it is. And they're like, yeah. And they're telling me, and I'm like, what? What? I've never heard of ayahuasca. That sounds strange, but I'll give it a shot. And so now it's very popular. But back then I was like, I never even heard of ayahuasca.
What year was this? In 2012?
2012, yeah.
Wow.
At least it wasn't in my circles. I had never really heard
Totally. I
of
mean, that was way
ayahuasca.
before it was like mainstream like it is now. For
It wasn't
sure.
mainstream. I literally just did it on a whim because it was like I was asked to be involved in this ceremony.
Wow.
And to take ayahuasca when you have just like reached the precipice of something. Most ayahuasca journeys are probably
The opposite.
the opposite. I had the most elated God ascending experience that one could ever imagine. I walked out of that like very sacred like hut temple and was just like, wow, that was incredible. And everyone else was like crawling out. They were crawling out of the hut. It was very intense.
Wow, you went in so
extreme.
blind. So did you do the Inca Trail or you didn't take the bus up to Machu Picchu? You did the actual hike?
No bus, no train. I did the trail.
Yeah, the multi-day hike?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was long. It was, I don't know how long it was, but I was just blistered up with my feet. It was super long.
Yeah, I did that trip in 2018 actually, and it was a really powerful pilgrimage and really powerful to be up in the Andes. What was the inspiration to go do that specifically?
I used to date a girl that she was so dynamic. She was in all different places around the world. And so ironically enough, she'd say, hey, I'm actually doing this trek because it sounds awesome. Love for you to join. And I could just tag along. And so it was easy for me to plan my schedule.
Just say yes.
Yeah. And she's like, hey, I'm going to actually do some hiking, some hitchhiking through Reykjavik in Iceland. Would you like to join? These are the dates. I could say yay or nay based on, Bubba's schedule. So it was really cool. I found myself like in these cool opportunities and unique scenarios and climbing Kilimanjaro, like even though I don't know what that is, at the time and going to like this small little farm in Le Boeuf, France, to do some kind of wolfing exchange. I mean, just so many cool things that she opened my eyes to. She was, I think she spoke 10 languages fluently. She moved to like Haiti and was helping with missionary work there. And next I know, she was like director of Chamber of Commerce, something crazy. And I went to go visit her and help out with Habitat for Humanity. It's like, she was always doing something so pivotal and so unique and so interesting. And it was this beautiful puzzle piece that fit into my life so nicely. So
where'd you meet her at?
I met her, where, I don't know what clothing stuff. I think it was like a place. Was that Structure or Eddie Bauer? Maybe it was Banana. I think it was in a Banana Republic in Calgary, Alberta, just randomly. And it was just an energetic thing. Like I was
shopping?
I was shopping. Yeah, I was shopping for men's clothes. I was there for a tournament. It was the middle of the summer. So I had, of course, shorts and t-shirt. And she had, and it was probably like 20 degrees outside, middle of summer. These Chinook winds came in. And I was like, what in the hell is wrong with this province? But I ended up having to go buy like some warmer clothes. She happened to be in there. I struck up a conversation. I was enamored.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, and then just the gift that just kept on giving. And once you started unwinding what she's actually doing in the world, it's amazing.
Well, she wasn't at the time. I wrote her letters. It was like kind of lonely on the road. So I wrote we corresponded through letters.
Yeah, there's no Instagram back then.
No, it was tons of letters. So I had to wait for a response. There was just a lot
of tension just built.
There was space. There was space to allow like love to unfurl.
Beautiful. Did you have any experience or understanding or awareness of plant medicines? I mean, it's such a big part of the conversation now, but back then you got invited to do ayahuasca. Had you had any other psychedelic experiences, any type of other non-ordinary states of consciousness experiences? And you just said yes? Yeah, I just said yes. I'm very open to anything that comes my way. So the fact that I hadn't was only because it just hadn't crossed paths with me. Mm-hmm. It hadn't chosen to. It wasn't until later in life that happened. But I was eating, breathing, and sleeping Bubba Watson. I showed up for him in every way, shape, form I could. And so a lot of things I worked on were very a top-down model. They're very superficial. They're very cognitive based. Things like ART, active release techniques, which is like basically a lot of protocols to do like a pin and stretch and
to create to take out a lot of scar tissue within the fascia and the muscular system. So things like that, I was like all for. But if you were to say, hey, honestly, it'd be great to take Bubba out to XYZ and do like a mushroom trip, or like Joshua Tree, take him on a mushroom journey, I would have been like, are you crazy? Like, he does not want to do that, I don't think a lot of golfers were open to that. And because they weren't open to it, nor was I. I had to sell them on something that was a little bit more tangible.
Yeah. Did you ever bring back this experience, and like, how did it shift you? And did you try to bring it back? Because it, like, depending on the impact it had on you, it seems like it was a pretty expansive experience. Did you bring it back into the culture of golf and try and share your experience, or did you kind of keep it to yourself? And specifically with Bubba, like, did you try and take him out to do a psychedelic mushroom experience, or how did that go?
No. It had to be very superficial with what Bubba would try, Like for me, I was like pulling teeth just to get him to actually participate in disc golf. That was something that I did intermittently between my travels and stuff, between the tour events. But no, I actually kept that within that realm of who I am. The PGA Tour is a very unique place, and it promotes the facade of what your outwardly appearance is.
Totally. I mean, it's the same thing with the NFL. The first thing I learned getting the NFL is they really dig it into you. Is the number one priority is the brand, the shield, the NFL shield. Everybody can probably picture the logo. That's number one. Do not do anything that's going to damage the reputation of the shield. And then it's the team logo and that brand. That's the next. Do not do anything that's going to damage that brand, that perception of what people will view of that. And then it's your personal brand. And I got in the league in 2010, right when social media was starting to take off, and they were just starting to have conversations because players had a voice now on Twitter and all these things. And there's some guys that were really doing that early on. But a lot of me, I mean, my whole career, I had a lot of resistance to social media because of that fear of, if I say the wrong thing, it's going to come back and I could possibly get fired. And even when I retired, it took me years to like even start a podcast. It was like, there's some stuff like, I don't know if I can say that but it's like, wait, I don't work for the NFL anymore. But it was so deeply ingrained of the perception and protecting that.
Yeah. And take that even a step further, in the world of me showing up as a trainer and or caddy on the PGA Tour. Because I consider myself an athlete. There are only like 200 caddies on the PGA Tour. And that's because there's only like 200 players on the PGA Tour, give or take. There's some exceptions to the rules, but essentially it's an elite group. And it has moved away from being someone who just shows up, maybe even drunk and has good party stories, to someone who takes it very seriously, like takes care of their fitness. Like you have to. It's an arduous profession. Even Stevie was like Sportsman of the Year. He was Tiger's caddy for years. Sportsman of the Year for New Zealand. So I saw myself as a pro athlete. And from there, a pro athlete that wasn't even like really accepted by the organization in which it worked with. Because although the PGA Tour was that, and they had every right to revoke, take away my voice on social and what have you, I also was then also under my player, who had the ability to revoke at a point in time, and nothing is contractual on the PGA Tour for the most part.
So you say the wrong thing, Bubba's like, all of a sudden you guys get in an argument or you say something or do something, he's like, get the fuck out of here.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have multiple conversations with him and him with me about his fear of me like just not representing one of his brands well. So because think of that, like you've got the PGA Tour and they're members of that. And so there's that. And then the complexities of like the 15 different sponsors. Because when you're a guy like Bubba at that particular time, you've got everybody who wants a piece. So you've got like a NetJets and a Oakley and a Richard Mille. And I mean, just a gamut of different sponsorships that they now have their own like logo and core values that I have to like abide by. It was like, I had so much weight on top of me. I'm like, I feel like if I even just breathe, I didn't even get on social media because it was just too much to juggle.
And so that's the reason you compartmentalize and kind of have this travel bug where it's like, I need to go let off some steam and do me for a second before I come back into the weight of all this energy that I need to uphold.
That's exactly right. I used a recorder actually for me. I had to vent a lot, and I didn't have a lot of people I could vent to. That's not the place. That's a traveling family, and you're with them all the time, but it's not the place to vent.
Yeah, because if you're bitching, that energy, it's bad culture. So you intuitively knew that I need to get this out of me instead of like going to a therapist or something, which is really all they're meant to do is just to listen. You intuitively allowed yourself to process.
Yeah. It was also an opportunity to document, and these new tools like a like a cell phone that had the ability to do voice memos. And then I could then email to myself. And I was like, if I ever wanted to document this or maybe write a book or whatever it may be, I just have like hundreds of voice notes.
Damn.
So it's
we
cool.
need to find that library.
Oh, I have it. I have it. It's under a certain folder inside my
passcode protected.
Well, the thing is I've never felt a need to dig up that. Like I was a gatekeeper for many secrets and many things. That's part of the job. And I've always felt that that was the integrity in which I wanted. A lot of the books that I have read where players worked for big name players such as Tiger and such, and then wrote books about them, really came from a place of like, it's very driven by ego. It's like, hey, let me tell you actually how it really went down. I'm going to tell you how it went down. I've never felt a need to like explain my story in that regard to someone else. I know who I am. I have a really good like hold on that. And
maybe an all tell for you at some point. You bring those journals back out. So how did your relationship with Bubba evolve? You went to Machu Picchu. You're riding high. Bubba's riding high. How did Bubba respond to winning that experience? Like, did he shift at all? Did he?
So I don't know, because I actually spent like 7 or 8 days or so in Peru, and he was on like a media tear. I do know what happens when you win the Masters. He literally was on every late night talk show. So he's just on Jimmy Fallon, and he's over here on David Letterman, and he was just doing the whole, circle. He's on Ellen and all those things, and which was incredible for him. And they were doing, meetings with the Golf Channel was coming to set up and talking about, because he had just adopted a baby boy named Caleb, and that was brand new to him. I think they had adopted Caleb like a week before, honestly.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it was just a lot of emotions flowing through, and everybody wanted to capture that story. And Bubba was very busy, so he had no space and time. Me being where I was at was great. He didn't even know I was gone. So I got to kind of have my autonomy, and he got to be in that energy of constantly just the excitement of what comes with winning a major championship like that in that fashion.
Did he like doing that stuff? Like all the responsibilities? It seems like it'd be a lot of work. I mean, it probably is fun at first because you're getting all this attention, but then it might just feel like a lot.
I think fame is hard.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, I think fame is really hard. I was privy to watching someone with the struggles of fame that didn't ask for it. So many of us seek it. We're like, oh, I want to be famous. I want people to know who I am. But that's to like want something you don't know what it is.
Yeah, 100%.
Because it's like the Matrix. You walk out and everybody is like Mr. Smith. Everybody now knows you, and they're like after you. And they're after you for something they want from you. And it's usually something small, like a picture or a signature. But though it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, it's just everybody wants a piece. And there's only so much time. And when do you draw the line and say no? And I've seen so much like charitable giving with their time, an hour of signing autographs and pictures, and then saying, hey, like I have to like go, I've got somewhere to be. And then just the turn, a flip switch of like, you dick.
Yeah, I actually dated a girl in Atlanta, and one time she was telling me how much she hates Tiger Woods. And I was like, oh, why do you hate him? Because of all the stuff that came out, and like call him a womanizer and like all that. And she's like, no, it's because when I was like 8 years old, I was at Augusta National, and I was a little kid, and I was just hoping to get his autograph, and I was standing there, and he walked by, and he didn't even acknowledge me.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, you got to let that go. It's like, as a professional athlete at the time, I'm like, I feel for the guy. Like, he didn't have time. He was probably focused on his game. Like,
100.
any million reasons why he didn't stop to give you an autograph. So I feel that big time. Luckily, I played a sport where, I mean, there's pros and cons to it all, but as a football player, we're wearing all these pads. So not a lot of people recognize my face. But when I would go into a restaurant with all the offensive line, they like eyes would turn towards like, we don't know what you guys do, but you guys definitely are athletes or do something. And then we'd walk in with like Matt Ryan or Jameis Winston, these big time quarterbacks. Everybody would know who they went. So who they were. So when we went out to dinner with them, just being like next to them and all the eyes and energy shift, it's a really fascinating thing to have to be in that 24/7, like wherever you go, you're going to get recognized. Like that seems like a lot. I'm grateful that I could tap into that, but then I could also go to Peru and do my own thing and nobody would know who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the pads are a big thing, and energy says it all. Whereas on PGA Tour, they're promoting your face.
Yeah.
You're seeing the face so much because you're one of their golden,
making money
products.
Yeah,
at
totally.
that particular time. So
totally. So how did that experience, like you worked with Bubba another couple of years after that? It seemed like it was right in the middle of you guys' time together. Did he shift at all? Like how did he handle that fame as from your perspective?
Yeah, boy. I think it really aided him. He loves golf and he's such a creative, almost like a child. He gets that imagination just going through him, and he's able to just articulate that with a club and paint a beautiful landscape. And I always wished he could have been as wowed as everyone else was, because when Bubba hits a golf ball, it's unlike anything I've ever seen or even heard. And I've heard a lot of golf balls. I actually say that I think he is one of the most talented golfers that's ever lived, if not the most. Now, does that translate to him like winning all the championships? Absolutely no. There's a lot of other things that Bubba struggled with, but ultimately, like his ability to hit 3-irons very low and then curve them in different directions in all sorts of trajectories and then hit it higher than a wedge. He had a gift that was given to him. And I wish he was more comfortable sharing it with the world. He would have people watch him and he's like, I don't know why they're watching me. It's just so weird. Like, don't they have something else to do? It's just, he didn't see it as a big deal. And it was a really big deal. It was his unique expression into the world. And I wish he was more comfortable sharing that with others, because it would have changed the dynamic and the energy in which I would have shown up for Bubba, because there was a time and a place where it's just like, I lost my luster. I lost my ability to want to show up because he didn't want it. He didn't want the notoriety or the fame, maybe the fame, but I guess probably the acceptance is what most people want. That acceptance that I'm wanted, or that I have a gift that the world wants to see, but definitely not interested in sharing it abundantly and selflessly. And I can go a little bit more into that, but essentially, I don't think he just wasn't comfortable watching people hit shots. If he would got to be in control and be like, hey, watch me show off, he liked that. But in a golf tournament,
he just wanted to focus on the game.
Just focus on the game and play the game, But because that's what he did. He plays golf. He does play golf. He doesn't work at golf. I never saw him take a practice swing. In my entire 5-year stint, I never saw him take a practice swing. All these golfers are working on positional areas, and in the mirror doing swing drills. Never saw it once.
Truly gifted at the game of golf naturally.
Really rare. Like I've never seen. Just touched, you have it. Wow. And he's just like, okay, thank you. But I don't know if we can really I don't know if we can be grateful for things that we didn't necessarily earn. I think we can, but
different perspective. You do not have the deeper appreciation for having to gone through necessarily the challenges that some or most people have to move through. Is there any
better said,
mental health, emotional health? How is that with these players, specifically with the players you worked with, maybe Bubba Watson, noticing anything trauma related or anything mental health, or how they handle the fame and the different shifts? What's your perspective as far as golf as a game and as a whole when it comes to mental and emotional well-being?
Yeah. So it's completely changed now. right? It's easy for me to look back and be like, oh my God, look at the trauma that existed there. Look at the stress and the overwhelm and the anxiety that's just that lays at top of everything. There's so much pressure, and there's those who thrive under it and those who don't. And the real question is like, how do you do that? How do you thrive under that type of pressure? Now looking back, yes, of course. But when I first started working with Bubba, I was still energetically sensitive enough to like understand like, oh, you know what? Bubba is definitely struggling with some mental things here for sure. I would push that too, and I did at the time, and I still would stand by this, although I've really never publicly stated that. I like almost probably within the first week I met him was like, I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum. You know, he had like a little bit of like high functioning, like Asperger's. You know, I was like, wow, this because his ability to like, it was just the way he saw life. And I could tap into that enough to be like, oh, wow, this is so fascinating to see how he sees it. And in such a narrow window and misses out on a lot of things, but also in the same step can see everything. But, you know, he saw things from a place of protection, you know.
How so?
So, you know, I want to respect him, you know, I don't want to get too deep into it, but, you know, just, I'll say something very light, you know, like when we would go out to a place, he would find himself sitting in the corner, and that would allow him to perceive everything that was happening. So essentially like a threat, you know, he would be able to perceive everything that was happening. And that made him feel safe. He would not turn his back on anyone really. And it definitely would never like willingly put his back towards a massive amount of people.
So you always noticed the kind of the natural low level of kind of angst in public settings and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, listen, this is not a judgment by any regard. I mean, I think we all, if put in this situation, would find other elements to ourselves coming to the surface. You put yourself in trouble in situations like ayahuasca. You put yourselves in situations that are trauma, you know, heavy or stress relieved. I mean, we find out how strong and resilient our nervous system is. We end up finding out if we actually break. I've broken, and I think that that's an important journey to understanding our mental health. I think it's a natural progression to it. It's what allows us to seek the diagnosis. It's what allows us to actually become informed. And it's what allows us to bring that awareness to our loved ones and to the world at a greater whole. What are we if we don't want to share that with others?
Oh, so when does it come to an end? So you're obviously riding high. You're on top of the world. You're helping this incredible player reach new levels. You're training him. You're obviously making a name for yourself in this regard. And you decide it's enough, and you decide to let it go. Why is that, and what was next?
Yeah, well, you know, honestly, I was really trying a lot of different things. I had this innate entrepreneurial like desire, you know, just because it was fun. I want to try and test things. So in the midst of all of this, I was trying out a lot of different types of businesses. I started this business called like Doughfish that was like an electrical patch, almost like electrolytes. You could,
patch that's electrolytes?
A patch that was electrolytes. It was essentially like Gatorade, you know, but in a lightning bolt and all the things. And there was a lot of like reasons that didn't go through. FDA, holy, talk about corruption. And then on top of that, it didn't really work. You had to like really break the skin, almost like a nicotine patch does, and then you're falling under the FDA instead of being governed by like the policing body of the supplement companies, which I can't remember. It's like N something DA or something. But yeah, and so I started a minimalist golf shoe company. I mean, I really was going at it, and I was having a lot of fun. And then I ended up creating a documentary series the company was called Golf Films, because I'm seeing every single one of these stories each week. And each week there's such a dynamic, everyone has their own story when they show up to a golf tournament, how they got there, the stress, missing flights, you know, like newborn baby, you know, like all these stories, and everyone comes in with different expectations. It's this amalgamation of all these cool, really stories that are worth telling. And it was almost like a Hard Knocks for, football. Or maybe not Hard Knocks. What's the, like NFL films?
NFL
maybe.
films,
Yeah,
where they do
right.
different
Where it's like,
storytelling on the.
it was a cold day and the Steelers were playing the Bears, Yes, it was like that, but it was a storytelling aspect where we really got into the nuances of how unique each player is, and we would follow one player for that week and tell his journey and story. So it was really cool, and I was excited. I was putting a lot of time and energy into that, which really means I pulled a lot of time away from Bubba. Bubba felt that tremendously. And I was busy pitching this to television networks. I mean, went down the whole rabbit hole of all of this. And I will say now, later, 7 years, 8 years later, the Golf Channel, or maybe it's NBC Golf, has something called Golf Films. And they do exactly just that.
Wow.
So yeah, pitched them, didn't like the idea at the time, but now it's a real thing.
A big thing. So you were actually starting this production company. It didn't end up not going anywhere.
It didn't, because we did do a lot of cool things, including filming a series for Bubba and all sorts of things. But it just took a lot of my time. For me, I got to spend my time off the course with Bubba, and I used to follow him on the course. So I used to walk with him, because a trainer can actually come in under the ropes and work on a player if something happens. If he tweaks his wrist or something like that, I can go in there and work on him. And so I had to be at the course always, all day. And so I really was bored. So having a production crew there was really cool, because I got to, instead of watching Bubba play, I could just watch my phone for the updates, but I could be with my team as they were trying to film and get inside the ropes and do cool things like that.
Cool. Was that part of the inspiration of doing this, filling that time? Because you've obviously had this entrepreneurial mind your entire life.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was why not? I'm already here.
Make the most of it. Yeah.
Make the most of the time. Exactly. Like a Rob Dyrdek hack, probably. You're trying to figure out every ounce of every day and put my time into it. And I'm also pretty young at this time,
How old are you at this
31
time?
probably. And I've got energy, I've got time, and I've got passion, and I've got a flair for life, and I want to share that. So
that business didn't work. What was the next business venture? What started clicking?
Oh my gosh. So I spoke earlier about how when you're playing with when you're playing golf, usually from a TV standpoint, you only see the shots of the player. So this was an incredible lead-in for me, because we were telling the stories of the player. We got to see the smiles. We got to see the defeats. We got to see a club throw. We got to see some anger, angst. We got to see some joy on the next hole. I mean, talk about a roller coaster of emotions within a round. And we as humans connect to storytelling. We connect to emotions. And this was an awesome opportunity to do that. So it was a great segue into this next venture, which I was leaving the PGA Tour, and I found a young kid on YouTube, and he was doing something at the time. He called it a video blog. He was doing a vlog. He was doing a course vlog, a golf course vlog. And what he was doing, he had a very dynamic personality. He would, he'd turn to the camera and he'd say, "What's going on, everybody? Welcome to MTI, moving it towards improvement. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be playing a 18-hole match. I'm going to be showing you every single shot. And I'm going to be walking you through it. So today we actually have a 400 he'd show his personality, 450-yard par 4. I'm going to be hitting driver. That's right. I'm going to let the big dog eat. You know how I do it. I never hold back. Let's see what I got." And he would talk to the camera, and he would hit his shot. And he was mic'd up the entire time. And he showed what kind of personality you can have in between the space where we don't see the personality. We don't see anything. We just see the shot. That's all we see. That's all we know about that player. Maybe we see them on the putting green or something like that, but we don't really hear their voice. We don't hear their expression. We can't connect to them. And this kid, his name was Gabriel Writer. He was connecting to the camera, and he was talking to you, and he was sharing it, and he was blowing up on YouTube. And this is 2014, 2013. YouTube is just kind of popping off, and golf is going nowhere, but he had already amassed a following of like 45,000 subscribers. He's the largest golf channel in the States. And I was like, damn, that's cool, because it was a great segue. I had already seen where we'd been missing out on the personality and capturing that essence, that humanness. And here's someone who's actually doing it. So I stalked him.
In great fish fashion.
Yeah.
I see some patterns happening here.
Yeah. Stalker patterns.
Yeah. The next opportunity.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I wanted to have like a legit conversation with him. I wanted to pick his brain and see how he's built this thing and what he plans to do with it. And so, that took some coaxing. He did not care that I came from Bubba Watson's camp. He didn't care about anything.
What did you come to him with? What were you pitching?
I was just like, listen, I think I have some background in, production. I have some incredible connections. Like, I could get you paired with like a great player, like maybe Webb Simpson, and you play a course vlog together. I just was seeing the visual of the bigger picture of where this could become. Like, I saw the opportunity to become a professional golfer outside of the PGA Tour. It had already started to transpire with people that are like long drive, but this was an opportunity where everybody had a playing field. If you were just good enough and were willing to put in the effort and the time, you could win, and everyone can win. Like, the internet is like the conscious like upload of human existence. Like, it can feed everyone. It can take care of everyone if need be. It's its own ecosystem. You just have to pour back into it. No more going to Walmart and having them outsource the cash from a local shop. I believe the internet has that capability of actually providing for all of us. And I could see where this was an opportunity for so many people to win in the golfing world. For like a young kid who aspires to be like, let's just say, a PGA Tour golfer, but it's not good enough. It's okay. You don't have to be good enough. Just like the streamers of video games aren't necessarily like pro video gamers.
Yeah, like the Twitch accounts, and people just watch people play video games.
That's right.
So people really enjoyed this guy taking them through golf. So what were you actually like? Was there a business opportunity specifically, or did you just want to help him kind of scale his own thing and like kind of partner with him?
Yeah, I don't know if I ever go into it with being like, this is how I'm specifically going to help. I actually know I can help. I don't know specifically what it is. I just know that I can. And really, it's a relationship. So like 3 cups of tea is a great like kind of mantra to follow. Like, take 3 cups of tea before you're ever going to do any business with someone. That's a great book and about like Afghani culture, and I think a lot of places around the world that take space before they're going to like intimately be interwoven with someone, even if it is business.
Especially if it's business, I feel.
Probably, especially, because we're very like, business is business in America. Yeah. It's not personal. What do you mean? Life is personal.
Yeah. Or if you have a really good idea and you're like all excited with a business partner and it's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go into business together. And you don't talk about any of the hard shit. And then a few months in, the hard shit starts happening, which eventually it's going to 100%. Yeah, and then it's like, wait, who are you about? Like, are we actually doing this together, or were we attached to the outcome or the idea? And then like all that true colors start coming out and the patterns start coming out. It's really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I just saw there was something there, and I started to court Gabriel Writer because I thought the next evolution could be found on YouTube in the game of golf.
Amazing. So what did that turn into? Anything?
We started really upping the game, and the channel was starting to really take off. It was going really, really well. What is exciting about it is to see what actually spawned from it, because the channel eventually was shut down. It was a cyclical pattern. This time, ayahuasca making its way back into my life. A friend out of the blue called me, said he was going to be going through an ayahuasca ceremony in Sedona, Arizona, which wasn't a far drive for me. I'm now located in Phoenix at this time. And Gabe overhears that conversation. It's just barely within an earshot. The fact that he caught that part of the conversation was so shocking to me. That was definitely not a mistake. He's like, did I hear ayahuasca? I didn't hear anything you said, but I heard ayahuasca. I was like, yeah, a friend of mine's doing ayahuasca. I've told him I've gone down that route. I said thank you, but no thank you. And he was like, wait, what? No, I want to try ayahuasca. I've been wanting to try it. And Gabe kind of convinces me to invite him. And he also convinces me to go with him because he's a little scared.
Mm-hmm.
Is
this the second time you've experienced ayahuasca since the first time?
This will be, yes. Yeah. It becomes, yes, that. And ayahuasca becomes something that opens Gabriel in a way that I don't think I've ever seen like anyone be really, truly opened.
How so?
Gabriel basically like looks at me as if like he almost doesn't know me at the end of that whole ceremony, which was like a 3-day excursion. Outdoors, indoors. We did ayahuasca in different locations. It was
multiple ceremonies. Yeah.
Yeah. It was intense. Even mine wasn't how I remember, but Gabriel basically tells me that he doesn't foresee himself continuing on with this journey anymore. The fact that ayahuasca has opened up his eyes to what potentially lies out there in the world, that he can't, in all good consciousness, continue on this path. And so he makes an announcement on the channel, and just like that, it's gone.
And this is the potentialities of working with the plant medicines, is having a total dissolution of self and not being able to go back to reality.
It's such a special gift to watch how quickly something can be taken down or destroyed or ended. And how slow of a process it takes to create.
Yeah. Where's Gabriel at now? What did he end up doing?
Gabriel lives in Peru.
Is he a medicine shaman now?
You know, we joke because I went towards like the healing route. He went towards golf. I stayed in the United States. He moved to Peru.
So there is golf courses in Peru.
There isn't.
There is.
I will tell you exactly what he's doing. It's very exciting. Just rewind a little bit. He closed down that channel, and he moved to Peru for an unforeseeable future. He just disappeared. I believe he did ayahuasca close to 70 sometimes. He did it until he ran out of money, basically. And he had a maestro, and he worked with in the jungle. It was a full-on thing. And it was, wow. Like, to show you a picture of Gabriel before and after, it's really shocking.
I would love to see those.
I might have to like give it to you so you can like put it up.
Yeah.
I mean, the comparison and the contrast. I mean, it's really awesome, actually. It's really cool to see that we can have the ability to change and mold ourselves so much within such a short period of time. We are just so malleable. It's so cool. It's so cool. So you're never stuck. You're never where you think you can't get out of. You can. No matter what, you can. So that led me like down a direction of like, well, holy shit, now what do I do? Gabriel actually had a golf subscription site. So how he was really kind of leveraging this channel is it was like, hey, by the way, you can buy this subscription site that I have that's full of golf videos and full of some of these golf instructors that I've traveled around and interviewed. You can see like kind of some elite clips. It was really cool. And he did really well with it. And I started to think like, well, I wonder if I could do something like that, you know? So I proceeded to, since golf instruction is not really my area of expertise, you know, I'm more like human performance, maybe golf fitness, if you will. I tried that, by the way, it didn't sell. Nobody wanted to buy my golf fitness website membership subscription.
Because the average golfer is not.
Yeah.
They're out there having beers.
Exactly. They want to just buy the driver and be done with it. So I ended up building a golf subscription website. And with not me as the lead, I actually used the framework in which I built, it was called Fish Fit, which I built the other subscription, but it was like videos of fitness. I basically just took those out and I put in videos of a golf instructor.
And then it hit.
It did hit, and I'll tell you, it didn't hit right away. There was another kind of really like cool thing that I saw. I was not witnessing, and I went through all the channels. I did a complete audit. I was not witnessing anyone who wasn't telling you of a golf tip and trying to sell you on a membership, which encompassed more golf tips. And I thought, that is just so stupid. I don't know why you would do that. That's a dime a dozen. Anybody can do that. I wanted to show, I wanted you to buy into a player. I wanted to show his essence. And the best way to show a golf instructor's essence is to film him and put him on camera when he's doing his magic, when he's teaching. And there was a golf instructor named George Gankis. And he was kind of like, I just liked his personality. And he was very close to a golf instruction guru that I really like connected with named Calvin Mirhara. And I liked their instruction and they were very similar. And I had learned a tremendous about marketing through my own journey of trying to launch FishFit. So I was like, I'm just going to put all these videos in this already created model. And on YouTube, instead of like having videos of what you should do, I'm going to show George doing what he is great at. Just like Bubba hitting those shots, that magic that comes out, that creativity, that essence, that's just expression into the world. I'm going to show George doing that. And so I just had a whole channel. I used the MTI channel since Gabe left it, had all these subscribers just sitting there. I used that to start posting George. And then I created a separate channel and was like, hey, all of you guys, if you resonate with George, go over to this channel. So I used it as like a springboard.
Mm-hmm.
Plus I had a tremendous amount of contacts from like bloggers to Golf Channel that I had made a giant network within a 10-year period of time on the PGA Tour. So I called in some shots. Writers that I knew, podcasters that were getting started in the golf space. And I'm using Gabriel's channel to springboard it. And I used some clever tactics and it ended up like popping off. And people were like, what the hell is this? Who wants to watch a guy teaching? And I was like, listen, the person that's taking that lesson that you're watching paid $150. So it has some value. Here are some of the highlights of that session. It's like a 6-minute, 7-minute clip. I think you'll learn something. And slowly but surely, people started being like, yes, oh my God, I did watch the whole thing. And he's actually an incredible teacher. And they started to buy into George's method and how he taught and what his style and essence was. They bought into him. And it was really cool because that popped off. And there was this awesome opportunity for this golf subscription site that could run by itself through automations. And it gave me an opportunity to move back to another cyclical pattern that I hadn't really revisited, which was international travel for me, not on a golf tour.
So that gave you the freedom to go explore and finally have some passive income coming that you don't need to be operational so you can go travel and explore.
Exactly.
That's beautiful, man. That's cool. And that helped give you the experience for what you're doing now. Talk about how you met Steven and the work that he does and what you guys are doing together now. Where did that genesis start and why'd you find yourself down in Arizona sitting with this practitioner that does this thing that you had never heard of?
Yeah, I appreciate you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate you. It's a cool opportunity to tell your story, And I want to come from a place. that delivers value, for others. And I think this is really kind of, if you've made it this far in the podcast, then this is like the real value because it's the most relatable, real thing that I kind of experienced. As I was traveling the world, I got to see a lot of places and probably really even connect with some of the things I never let myself feel before. There was space finally to grieve and space to find gratitude and to see some of the beauty of travel. because I didn't get to see it when I was on the tour. There wasn't enough space. I visited a lot of countries, but I didn't have my own space to really see and be in the country and in the culture amongst like the natives. So in all that travel, I had another chance encounter where I met someone who was like really kind of like made me just, um, just woke me up, if you will, just enamored me again. It is such a beautiful thing to fall in love.
Mm.
And I met a girl who actually had the same birthday as I did. And I found such a cool frequency. She was like almost like a mirror to me. Like it was like watching myself at a younger age, doing all the things that I was doing on a very similar path that I was on. She was in golf. She was like one of the top amateurs in the world at the time. It was so cool to see our similarities and our paths so aligned, completing each other's senses, all the things you would like see in a movie. And her and I had a really strong bond, a really great relationship. And you know, it weathered some time, probably about 3 years or so, maybe a touch longer than that. And really like focusing on my viewpoint of that experience and through the lens of my eyes in which I saw it. You know, I received a call from her. I hadn't really talked to her in a while. I'd been getting back into golf and trying to practice a lot. And it had been a couple of weeks. I hadn't really heard from her. Um, and I bet you I even knew something was up. I just hadn't really reached out to her. I'd given some space. Her and I had just been through something very difficult together. So it was really good that we had some space and time. And she sent me a text message that for me seemed to come out of the blue, but it said that we need to talk. And it had all the energy that one would think it would have. And I was like, right now? And she's like, no, this one will be in person. So that even carries more weight and more energy. And there's that retro causality of feeling something prior to even like experiencing it. It's like, I'm feeling this. It's starting to like bubble up. And holy shit, like that's scary. And so the moment came where I finally met her in person. It was a very neutral event.
How long between the text message and you guys meeting in person was there?
I was traveling, so I had to wait.
Wow.
I had to wait like 4 days.
Somewhere where you don't want the space.
It's funny how I talk about the magic of space, and in that moment, that's the last thing I wanted. I did not want space. I wanted a conclusion. I wanted it now. Pull the Band-Aid off now. If this is going to hurt, I want it now. And I don't even have any context around anything, so I don't have any information.
Just a feeling.
Just a feeling. And a nervous one. And you trust your body. You know that your body's not wrong. And so we meet at a neutral location, and she walks up. I get there before her. She walks up. She sits down with me, and immediately a tear rolls down her eye. And I'm just like, ooh. The humanness of this exchange is so heavy. And there's no words, but there needs not be. And she doesn't say much, but she does say this. She says, this is impossible to like put into words. So I'll just say it. I'm engaged to someone else. And so I sit there with that and those words as they start to like enter my brain and start to be understood. And I feel like I'm like so strongly connected to her that there have been processes that have been like skipped that were so necessary for me to like understand and to be a part of, because trauma is too much, too fast, too soon. Often it's when you get bulldozed, and here's just a phrase that is eliciting a response inside of me that is like just destroying me kind of ultimately from the inside. And I'll never forget in that moment because it was moving so slow and time was just freezing. I'll never forget. I remember saying to her, this is what it feels like when a moment becomes a memory. And I said that because that's what I felt. I felt that everything had stopped. And I was just watching this slow motion, even myself, in this really difficult exchange where I couldn't even comprehend what was happening. What do you say to that? Like, what is there anything to say? Does something need to be said? Do you fight for this person? Have they already made up their mind? No. So I needed more space. And I remember after I said, I was like, I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be said. You seem so sure in your delivery. And so I walked away and I took space. It was after the fact that really was the dark times for me. With no real conclusion, no resolution, no really like, I think it was maybe one of the most incredible, profound moments of my life because it was the first time that I was forced to sit there and deal with something and find closure. I don't know if I had ever found closure to any relationship ever without the other person being there. It had always been a joint experience. And I found closure with some, not with others, even though I may have wanted it. But this one, I was solely on my own. And that's probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. Because it forced me in that moment to own it. I think there are times in our lives that maybe not exactly where we become a man, but I think there are moments like that for me that were huge building blocks to me owning, being responsible for some of the actions that I made, or maybe even some of the things I didn't do. And so really my breakdown after that was saying, almost ceremonial, saying goodbye to the man that I was. A letting go of the man I was to become the man that I want to be and how I want to show up for partners in the future and how I want to have others feel an incredible amount of safety and love and compassion from me moving forward. And it was a huge pivotal moment for me. Looking back, of course, only looking back can I see that the thing that I thought derailed my life was the thing that put me on track. And I feel huge, obligatory, incredible, beautiful opportunity to now go out into the world and say, I was broken because of certain patterns that existed within myself and certain actions. And I had to figure out how to piece myself back together. And I was fortunate to come across something that worked for me. And now my mission is to spread that just in the slight opportunity that it might work for others.
Oh, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks for being so present.
Wow. I can feel the energy of that moment. And I'm sure everybody listening, I know, just reflecting my own experiences of that feeling, like the rug being ripped out from under you and the void that's created in the chaos that ensues and the trying to find some resemblance of stability within that chaos, and the downward spiral that can happen, and the unwinding, and the grief, and the depth of the grief. And it's really the freedom from that is found in the feeling of it. And I think a lot of times we are not taught in our culture and our society how to feel and how to properly grieve and process those emotions, and we push them down, or we numb out with alcohol or drugs or food or travel or anything, with work. And being able to access and go into those feelings and process them is such a, if not the most powerful tool for healing. So talk about the darkness that ensued, and then the light that you found, and the ability to access those emotions maybe in a way you never have, and how it sparked this inspiration for what you're doing now.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I come from a golf background where it is so traditional to push things down. Not right now, later. Things are exchanged in whispers. It's tradition. You know, and you're around a lot of other men that don't want to look weak in each other's eyes. And sensitivity is seen as that, especially in this Western culture, especially on the PGA Tour. So I come from that environment, and I have been conditioned to think that I'm tough because I haven't really felt anything, processed anything. And this kind of incident took me to a depth I have not known, never experienced. And and I call it a gift, because it really is to feel those lows. It's the only way to really project yourself into life and feel the highs. But you know, it was very dark. It was almost as if I was tuning into a frequency of not my own. It was as if there are always channels that are playing by the universe, and some are deeply embedded in despair. Some are like joyfully elated in highs of emotion, and you're able to fluctuate and tap into these different frequencies. And I was on a radio station where most of the discussion was about self-worth, not being worth anything. Your identity doesn't matter. You don't matter. It's shocking to hear those thoughts have really never entered my mind very often. If they were very fleeting, and I didn't pay much mind to them. But I was tapped into this radio station to a place where I was starting to like say them myself. It became almost like a mantra for me. Even though I tried a ton of different like tactics and techniques and everything I knew and was resourced enough to like reach out and try. It only, and I spent about 2.5 months in bed. I did some drugs. I woke up in some strange hotel rooms. I was finding myself in a world that exists every day for some, and I merely was fortunate enough to only have to visit. In 2.5 months or so, I laid in my bed. I found myself struggling with my own identity, my own like sexuality, like everything was questioned. Every single decision of my life was being like thrown on the table and almost like looked at whether or not that was truly me. And I was so fortunate. I actually had someone, and it was Gabriel Writer, that happened to be crossing my paths at that exact same time in my life. And he held me actually for the majority of those nights. I stayed at his place. I slept on his couch most of the time, but there's sometimes I stayed in his bed, and he just held me while I cried for hours. And I look back on those moments, and I'm like, this is how I was when I had someone to hold me, when I had someone to support me. It's like, I don't know how personally people make it out of that. I was like, there's no way I can find a way out of this. But Gabe also had heard of a guy named Steven Jaggers who had just completed some kind of breathwork certification, and he had called it somatic release. And Gabe was like, that's kind of like emotional release. I think it would be advantageous for you to go. Plus, if you bring 2 people, you get a discount. You gotta love Gabriel, because he, although he's holding me and he's there with me, he's not really like, he's not experiencing it with me. He can find the humor in it even when I couldn't. That was a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good thing. And so that would be the direction. I would head to a breathwork session, an individual breathwork session with Steven Jaggers. I don't know him, so I do put a camera in the corner and I actually hit the record button, safety purposes. And I literally watch, because I don't know what's going to transpire. I have no idea. I've never been privy to any probably of the healing arts. Breathwork's a foreign actually word to me. And I'm in this realm.
You've done ayahuasca. I mean, you're familiar.
So it's shocking to me.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, I look back on that video from time to time. Holy shit. Like it almost looked like an exorcism in some regard. I was going through something so deep and so heavy and so hard. I'm almost witnessing in some way my own death, at least the death of the person that I was showing up as well as the loss of my confidant. So, what is life but an opportunity to really like build and cultivate a relationship with the things that you'll lose? And that's exactly what happened. I experienced this breathwork session. I released a lot of just, truthfully, anger. I remember in the moment being like, and I was asking Steven. Steven was kind of giving me some prompts around what was going to happen. He was setting the container. And I remember saying something along the lines like, well, this is what happened to me. I'm not angry at her. I don't hold any ill feelings. I remember saying that. And I'll never forget. He's like, you should be angry. And I probably think that that's probably the first time that anyone gave me like permission to like feel like the depths of what I was feeling, not necessarily like feeling the superficial things, like the sensations that happen, but like really the deep down stuff that no one else I wanted anyone to see, or like that they would be okay with seeing. And so as a man who's seen like 94 countries, I have a man across from me saying like, hey, actually, whatever you feel, you're going to get permission to feel that, no matter what that is. And that's the first time it's the first time I ever had that experience. I say to this day, it is like the greatest gift I've ever received. Somebody saying that you have permission to feel what you feel in front of me without me judging you. And for all the things that I've experienced and for all the places I've gone, for someone to say that and give me something I've never had before. And I think that this business, if we want to call it that, this movement is really that. It's actually not breath work as much as it is a place where you're going to get to feel what you meant to feel, but no one else really allows you to. And you're going to get to feel it fully. And you're going to be allowed to complete the cycle of feeling. To this day, it still remains like my greatest gift I've ever received. Really special.
Oh man, holy cow. What a journey. You told me that on the phone. It wasn't definitely wasn't this deep. And it's so cool to hear the origin story of what seems to be this really beautiful opportunity, yes, but it's so much more than that. It's helping people, like you said, tap into the emotions, the feelings, and that leads to this profound healing and release and letting go of the parts of ourselves that feel wounded, feel hurt, feel rejected. And for whatever reason, whatever we've gone through, if we don't feel those emotions, they get stuck in our body and they get suppressed into the unconscious. So you saying, I'm not angry at her, is what you think you need to say, because you're trying to be a good person. You're like, I shouldn't be angry. But it doesn't, no matter what you think about how you're feeling, like the feelings are there, and then suppressing them. And there's something that magical that happens when you go to the depth of the feeling, not even just to the surface where you're kind of tearing up and crying, but like, okay, let me allow myself to go into this and express it. And the catharsis that happens and the freedom on the other side of that, and like the clarity and the release and the feeling is so beautiful. And then even the unwinding of the stories and the resentment, the stuff that you didn't even know you were holding on to, you can like literally see it go unwind because the feelings are felt. And then that's what leads to actual forgiveness, where you say, I'm not mad at her, but now you can actually see from a higher purview of maybe a deeper compassion for what she did and what she's going through. And that freedom and forgiveness is only found through the release and the feeling that happens through the emotional body.
Yeah. It was an opportunity to forgive myself. And that's where it started. And from there, it was an incredible. I think when it starts with you, it can't help but permeate out into the world. You forgive yourself, you have forgiven everyone. So it is my mission to show up in such a way that others have a potential opportunity to access this if they so need. It's any gift that you've received in your life that was worth regifting, you should.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. So you have this experience with this man, Steven Jaggers, that you don't know. Now you know him. He's given you this gift that you received and changed your life. And when did the idea of, I like, holy cow, I've been in the deepest, darkest frequency of despair, and this is helping me get out of it when I thought nothing would. Is there a desire in that moment to, we need to get this to more people? Or how did that relationship start to cultivate into what you guys are doing now together?
Well, the first, I was like, what the hell was that? Like, I was just like, Gabe put his arm around me. He helped me out of there. It was the most energetically drained I think I've ever been in my life, maybe emotionally too, emotionally drained. I went through everything. I went through all a gamut of emotions. Like, it was quite the experience for me. I saw Steven probably 6 more times within a 2-month period. And then after that, I took space for myself. I went on a trip that I had planned with her and I originally, but I went by myself.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And then when I came back, I took a van and I toured the national parks, where there was just so much nature and so much reconnection and so much like thought, what I was going to do, so much thought into like who I wanted to be. And I mentioned earlier in the podcast, and this is why I actually said it, is because I wrote some love notes to myself, some love reminders to return back to myself. And I would write them at night, and I'd wake up and read them. And it was quite nice to court yourself. We lose ourselves oftentimes in the pressures and the thralls of life. What an incredible opportunity to return, reconnect, and remember. So with space, with national park space, which is its own space, and sessions, there was an incredible healing and an incredible fire now to bring that gift to as many who find it as valuable as I did. And that's the path that I'm on now. And I am excited for each day. I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life at this point in time, because this is the first time I think I haven't pushed my agenda on the world. I have asked the world what its agenda is for me.
Oh, that is so beautiful, man. I really appreciate you, man. I appreciate you showing up. I appreciate your storytelling, your life journey, your experience, everything you've been through, your openness, your vulnerability. Your words are definitely inspiring. Your journey is inspiring. Your healing's inspiring. Really, really grateful for you and the work that you and Steven are doing. I see you guys impacting many, many lives, and I know you guys are just getting started. So thank you. Where can people find you personally, and then what you're doing with somatic breathwork, and how people can get involved if they're curious about the modality?
Yeah, for sure. I love this aspect because this is more connection points. I actually really do love the back end of social media, the DMs, the opportunity to really have now face conversation, one-on-ones, audio messages, back and forth exchange. Like, that's the magic, not the feed. That's the superficial.
Yeah.
Again, where's the depth? The depth of social relies on the back end. And so that's like my favorite part of social. And so anybody who wants to connect, I never miss a DM, by the way. Fischer, and Fischer is with a C, so it's Fischer. Steven Jaggers is Jaggers Jr., I believe. Those are our @ handles. I'm pretty much Fisher on every platform. There's an underscore under it for Instagram. You can find me on all the platforms. Our movement is Somatic Breathwork. It used to be Somatic Release, a very important thing I want to mention. And we removed the word release because it was much more about what you receive than what you receive. It's never that much about what you're letting go of. It's about what you're letting in. And so I wanted to really focus on that and honor that part. And as we do this more, we're starting to even realize that it is even beyond breathwork. It is more about the expression that lies at the precipice beyond the breath. And so realizing that, there's a good chance that very soon we're just somatic. And somatic spelled with a Q instead of a C at the end, so that it becomes soma. The T is a plus. IQ. Body intelligence. A movement that is focused on that our innate intelligence is always our North Star and is always moving us to the things that we need for our higher purpose. Even if it's a call or a text that you don't want to respond to, it knows. The body's intelligence is so ancient and so innate, and to tap into that is to really honor your true essence of humanity. And so this is a movement about one's body intelligence. And that's what Steven and I do. We hold trainings that teach you how to work with the innate intelligence of the body to find that kind of reconnection with yourself. So that's right now somaticbreathwork.com, but depending on how old this podcast is, it might be just somatic with a Q at the end.com. And our social handles for now are Somatic Release.
Beautiful. And it's expanding quickly.
It is a movement. We have close to 700 practitioners globally already within a 2-year period.
Wow.
The world has said yes, and Stephen and I feel honored to shepherd that in, to shepherd in a movement that the world has said we need this right now. And we plan to do that until the world says, okay, we're good.
Until we're all emotionally aware and intelligent.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so proud of y'all.
Thank you.
Like, well done, dude. It's seriously such good work, and it's accessible. There's a lot of this spiritual renaissance and psychedelic movement and all these like deep healing modalities and like a lot of language and a lot of woo-woo talk and new age materialism. Like, there's all these things that go into it, but to have something that is bringing people, and it's super accessible, and it's connecting with them with themselves, their emotions. Like, that's what it's all about. And that's really how you connect deeper with God, creation, spirit, whatever you want to call it, whatever your belief structure is. The way to expand into that and deepen your connection with that is through the body. And so thank you for your work, man.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
And thank you all for listening. I really appreciate y'all. If something in this podcast inspired you, if there was a story Fish shared that you think would impact somebody that you know, or if somebody popped into your awareness as you were listening to this, make sure you share the show with them. You never know how someone's words can really change the trajectory of their life, like Fish so eloquently shared multiple times throughout this journey. And if you enjoy this podcast, a great way to support it is leave a 5-star review, say some nice things, and make sure you follow and subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. There's some really good conversations coming out in the future. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate you, Fish.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, brother. Peace.